A call to order the regular meeting of the Anchorage Assembly for October 23rd. And Madam Clerk, could you take the roll?
Drummond.
Here.
Trainee.
Here.
Honeman.
Here.
Gray Jackson.
Honored to be here.
Hall.
Here.
Johnston.
Here.
Starr.
Here.
Trombley.
Here.
Osiander. Flynn. Flynn will be joining us telephonically shortly. Birch.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Mr. Trombley, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, sir.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll move into our reports, beginning with the Mayor. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Had an exciting week last week with AFN in town. Had an opportunity to address the delegates and spend an awful lot of time there, particularly listening to some of the floor sessions and wandering through the arts and crafts, which was just a tremendous example of our fine Native artists and their outstanding work. This week I already have two new conferences in town. I welcomed the Child Maltreatment Conference yesterday and then the Alaska Transit Conference today. So we've got a lot of activity in town and a lot of great information being shared in various sectors. So it's been good for the economy and just good for imparting knowledge on different subjects. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a bit of a report this evening. I'm actually want to begin my report by a swearing in of two deputy municipal clerks. So if they would join our clerk at the podium.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States,
The Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the State of Alaska,
The Constitution of the State of Alaska.
and the Charter of the Municipality of Anchorage,
And the Charter of the Municipality of Anchorage.
and that I will faithfully perform
And that I will faithfully perform
the duties of Deputy Clerk
the duties of Deputy Clerk
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please introduce yourselves. You're not going to get to walk away. Now that you've taken the oath of office, we want to know who you are so we know where to find you.
Okay, my name is Anna Novak, and I'm the new deputy clerk. I work for the municipality for the last 10 years, and probably most of the people here know me because I used to work at the employee relations.
Hi, I'm Amanda Moser, Deputy Clerk, and I've been in the clerk's office for about the last 2.5 years.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Another recognition that I want to do tonight, I'm delighted to share with my fellow assembly members that our Assembly Member Adam Trombley was recently appointed to by Governor Parnell as the public member of the Alaska Bar Association of Governors. Congratulations, Adam. You make us proud. Agenda items I want to give heads up on this evening. The Tesoro to Go that is on our agenda, it's anticipated that since the applicant withdrew their application that this item will be postponed indefinitely. I received a most gracious letter from Tesoro stating that they had heard their community. They want to be a good neighbor, and for that reason, they know that there's been a history in the past from another provider, and they look forward to working with the community, look forward to helping deal with the inebriate problem in that area, and just most gracious that they decided that they would withdraw that. It's very gratifying when we have individuals in the community that hear the voice of the community. On the item of the John Thomas Building, item 13B on the agenda today, we will open public hearing again. Heads up, you get to testify once, only once. This will be continued to the 30th, the meeting of the 30th, and we will have public testimony that evening. So you need to decide if your desire is to testify this evening or wait and testify next week. With that, I would go to our assembly members, beginning with Mr. Birch.
Looking forward, we have an AMATS, our monthly meeting will be held on Thursday the 25th from 1 to 3, and that will be in the Mayor's Conference Room. All are invited to that. And secondly, we have a work session scheduled with on the reapportionment, assembly reapportionment, and the mapping districts, and that is to be held on Friday at noon. I believe the chairman has set that up, and Mr. Traney and the chairman and I have been participating in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Birch. Mr. Flynn, are you on the phone?
Mr. Chairman, the only thing else to report was the AMATS meeting, so I'll pass.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Flynn. Ms. Osiander.
Title 21 will be meeting this Thursday, 9:30 to 12:30 in the Planning Department Conference Room. I am anticipating a break after this meeting, though, until we finish up the drafts of our decisions.
Thank you. Mr. Trombley.
Mr. Chairman, I'm waiting on for the Ethics and Elections Committee. We still need to do some changes to the election law, and I'm waiting until we get through this budget season before we start taking that up. I don't want to clog up the schedule too much. So as soon as this is complete, we'll move forward with some of those changes.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Trombley. Mr. Starr.
Well, obviously, we have our first public hearing on the budget tonight, and the next one on the 30th. It's still my anticipation to sort of have any proposed amendments back into the clerk's office by maybe the evening of the 7th, and then a work session scheduled already on the schedule for the 9th of November. Sometime this week, you'll be getting suggested budget forms, as we've done before, to sort of put some uniformity to them. So watch for an email that may have budget amendment forms attached. Other than that, we're ready to talk about it.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Ms. Johnston.
No report, thank you.
Ms. Gray-Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have an audit report, but I did have the honor of attending the Alaska Transit Conference this afternoon. I was one of 3 members on a panel. I was with the Mayor of Kodiak and Kathy Wasserman from AML, and we talked with a whole bunch of folks in the audience about local government and transit, and talked about ways to get assembly members and council members throughout the state more interested in supporting public transit within our communities. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Gray-Jackson. Mr. Honeman.
And no report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Traney.
Nothing quite weekend, sir.
Very good. Thank you. Ms. Drummond.
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you. We have an addendum to the agenda. I would take a motion to incorporate.
To incorporate.
Second.
Okay. Any objection? Seeing and hearing none, I will read the addendum to the agenda. We have item 9A, resolution AR 245, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing and honoring Fred R. Florencio for his 38 years of service to the municipality of Anchorage. 9B3, resolution 246, a resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating $19,000 from the Anchorage School District to the area-wide General Government Operating Fund 101, Internal Audit Department, for the purpose of funding salary and benefits for an Anchorage School District auditor for 2 months for in the Internal Audit Department. Item 9D, new business 10, Assembly Memorandum number 615, and propriety purchase for services from the Netherlands Sewell and Associates Incorporated to complete a Beluga River Unit gas field reserve study for the municipality of Anchorage, Municipal Light and Power, in not to exceed $50,000. D11, Assembly Memorandum number 616, recommendation of award to Burkhart Croft Architects, LLC, to provide professional architectural and engineering services for Chugiak Fire Station number 35, designed for the Municipality of Anchorage Public Works Department Maintenance and Operations Division, RFP 2012 PO29, in the amount of $624,137. D12, Assembly Memorandum number 618, sole source contract with Anchorage Economic Development Corporation to provide project management of a planning phase for the Ship Creek Improvements Project for the municipality of Anchorage, not to exceed $600,000. D13, Assembly Memorandum number 619, sole source purchase of an intra-port communications system from Alaska Communications for the municipality of Anchorage, Port of Anchorage, in the amount of $172,565.76. 9F7, ordinance and resolutions for introduction, AO number 106, an ordinance amending Anchorage Municipal Code, Section 3.20.010 and 3.20.050 and 3.20.070 to reorganize the executive branch by placing the Office of Management and Budget within the Office of the Chief Fiscal Office. And that's accompanied by Assembly Memorandum number AM 617. F8, AO number 107, an ordinance of the Municipality of Anchorage, Alaska, approving submission by the Anchorage Water and Wastewater Utility on behalf of the Anchorage Water Utility, AWU, and the Anchorage Wastewater Utility of proposed rate changes to the Regulatory Commission of Alaska. Public hearing is scheduled for 11/13/12. Item F are 14 new public hearings. 14F2, AO number 99S, an ordinance of the Municipality of Anchorage adopting and appropriating funds for the 2013 General Government Operating Budget for the Municipality of Anchorage, Office of Management and Budget, and that's accompanied by AM 560. 14J, number 2, AO number 101S, an ordinance adopting and appropriating funds for the 2013 Municipal Utilities Enterprise Activities Operating Budget and the 2013 Municipal Utilities Enterprise and Activities Capital Improvement Budget. And that's accompanied by Assembly Memorandum 53. And 14M, AO number 104S, an omnibus ordinance of the Anchorage Assembly amending Municipal Code and Anchorage Municipal Code of Regulation to modify existing and include additional fees, fines, and penalties. And that's accompanied by AM 621. And we have one laid on the table item, which is 9F9. That is AR number 247, a resolution of the Municipality of Anchorage appropriating $250,000 from the Chugiak Fire Service Area Fund Balance 104 through the Chugiak Fire Service Area 2012 Operating Budget 104 and appropriating $80,000 as a contribution from the Chugiak Fire Service Area Fund 2012 Operating Budget 104, all to the Chugiak Fire Service Area Capital Improvement Fund 404, the Anchorage Fire Department to refurbish and upgrade the performance capabilities of engine number 32 and existing frontline emergency response apparatus purchased and placed in service in 1994. That is all of the items under the addendum to the agenda. I'd have a motion to adopt the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
Any objection? Okay, let's pull items for that individuals want to pull. Beginning with Ms. Drummond.
Nothing, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Trainee?
Nothing, sir.
Mr. Honeman?
9L for 1 on the consent, on the addendum, please. 9A1.
Ms. Gray Jackson?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Johnston?
No, thank you.
Mr. Starr?
9 Echo 2.
Mr. Trombley?
No items.
Ms. Osiander? Mr. Flynn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 9 Delta 13 to declare potential conflict of interest.
Mr. Birch?
No items.
Administration? Okay, I showed pulled for reading 9A1, 9D13, and 9E2. Any other items? Seeing, hearing none, any objection to adopting the consent agenda, less the items that have been pulled? Seeing, hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. We have before us item 9A1. Mr. Honeman, are you reading, and Ms. Gray Jackson is presenting?
That is correct.
Okay. Motion.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay. Any objection? Seeing and hearing none, that item is approved. Mr. Honeman?
Yes, sir. It's Anchorage Resolution 2012-245, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing and honoring Fred R. Fulgencio for his 38 years of service to the municipality of Anchorage. Whereas Fred Fulgencio has dedicated 38 years of his life to public service to the municipality of Anchorage, foregoing his personal interests and making his career his first priority. And whereas Fred R. Fulgencio began working part-time for the municipality in 1970 as a recreation specialist for the Recreation Division of Parks and Recreation. Since then, Fred progressed through the Parks and Recreation Department, holding a variety of positions, such as the facility manager for Pete's City Gym, which was located where the Performing Arts Center is now, a park caretaker with the park maintenance, a community work service assistant, and finally, in 1988, Fred was promoted to the community as the community work service supervisor, where he has led one of the most effective and efficient work units in the municipality. And whereas Fred has embraced changes in administrations, 8 mayors, supervision, at least 13, policies, budgets, work locations, job assignments, he has always rolled with the punches, made suggestions without complaining, and got the job done. And whereas Fred led and directed the Community Work Service section, whose mission is to guide a work program in the Anchorage Parks and Trails and other municipal facilities for those persons sentenced by the Alaska court system to perform community service as part of participants' sentence, in lieu of jail time or in lieu of a fine, and by the State of Alaska Social Services Juvenile Probation Office for juveniles who are on formal probation. And Whereas under Fred's leadership, the Community Work Service Program managed over 60,000 participants who logged 1.1 million hours of community service at a labor value of more than $17 million. And whereas Fred was committed to all current applicable safety standards and kept up with the ever-changing OSHA, state, municipal, and miscellaneous code requirements, Fred's safety record is extraordinary. During the 24 years he supervised community work service, there were 0 serious injuries to himself, staff, or program participants. And whereas Fred attended the Anchorage District Court every Friday morning to testify and confirm the community service results, both positive and negative, of program participants. Under Fred's leadership, both judges and lawyers have placed an extremely high value on community work services exemplary record keeping and Fred's clear judgment handling a variety of sensitive case details. Fred has truly become a mainstay of the Anchorage District Court. And whereas Fred's coworkers affectionately call him, quote, "No problem Fred," end quote, because of the way he approached any task asked of him. Fred was unfazed by any request, large or small. Seemingly impossible feats were accepted by Fred with only one comment: "No problem," then handled with a steady hand, a level head, and his can-do attitude. Whereas over the course of his many years of employment, Fred received numerous calls and letters of appreciation from satisfied citizens and colleagues in departments throughout the municipality for jobs well done. And whereas Fred has a huge extended family that spans 4, almost 5 generations, he enjoys people, learning about different customs and seeing new places. Fred has a big heart, generous personality, and will continue to serve others. And whereas Fred retired from municipal employment October 19, 2012, and now therefore be it resolved, the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizes and honors Fred R. Fulgencio for his 38 years of service to the municipality of Anchorage and the citizens of Anchorage. Passed and approved by the Anchorage Municipal Assembly this 23rd date of October 2012.
Yeah, I was telling Elvie, I just saw my whole life flash before me. And I couldn't have done any of this stuff without the cooperation of everybody that I've dealt with within the municipality, my staff, whom I love dearly, and for many people, I did start my career off with George Sullivan, and I'm ending it with Dan, and that's outstanding. And I thank the Assembly for this great honor, and that's all I can say, really. Thank you.
Good. Just a moment. I am curious, was that your cheering section or just your family?
Oh, that's...
Mr. Honeman.
Actually, it could be both.
Fred, I know I want to thank you for your years, 38 years. Gosh, I know when my wife's finished with her career, I think she's going to have a minimum of 37 and a half. So if she looks as good as you with just a few gray hairs after all those years, I'll be grateful. Fred, I just want to thank you for your years of service to this community and to our municipality, as well as having worked along crossing paths on the legal side of the house, so checking up on people and working with. I know you had a steady hand and you made a positive impact on a lot of people in this community, whether you realize it or not. So I thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, you know, I just turned 71 now, so I've got to find something else to do.
Mayor Sullivan.
Yes, thank you. I used to spend many hours of my life at the old city gym downtown and first met Fred when he was a recreation specialist there at the gym, and Pete's gym downstairs, and you know, to see your career and how it's gone for nearly 4 decades with the municipality, it truly is a great example of public service. And I enjoyed working with you, Fred, and we're going to miss you. And you know, you look at the statistics, 60,000 individuals in the community work service program under his direction is just amazing. So we'll miss you, but enjoy the next phase of your life.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hi, Fred. Well, I've known Fred for almost 30 of the 38 years that he's worked for the municipality, and every single word in that resolution is absolutely the truth. I've been honored to know you, and I want you to know that your resolution is probably the longest resolution ever. But there was a lot to be said for everything you've done for the citizens in this municipality, Fred. So with that said, I wish you a happy retirement. Enjoy yourself now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gray-Jackson. That's all of the notice to speak. Fred, thank you.
Thank you.
We now have before us item 9D13, Assembly Memorandum Number 619, sole source purchase of an intraport communication system from Alaska Communications for the municipality of Anchorage, Port of Anchorage, in the amount of $172,565.76.
Move to approve. Second.
Okay. That was Mr. Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I think you are aware, my wife represents ACS, and therefore I think it's probably appropriate that I not be participate in this one.
Okay, we will honor that, Mr. Flynn, although I've got to ask you, do you have substantial financial or private interest in the matter before the Assembly?
Not the specific interest, other than, of course, this is income to ACS, which they then use to pay my wife.
Okay. You know, Mr. Flynn, I don't find that you've got a conflict in regards to this, so we'll expect you to vote, and we're going to vote on this item now. Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
That item passes unanimously. We have now before us item 9E2, an information memorandum number 95. It's the monthly general government revenue status report to the Assembly as of October 3rd, 2012. Mr. Starr?
Move to accept.
Second.
Well, I'm pleased for a couple different reasons. In a broader sense, I'm pleased that we're starting to get an understanding of what the reports are that are in front of us, and we have cohesiveness with the revenue, the expense, the investment earnings reports, and I think this Assembly's come a good way on getting information in front of them that we can use. Ms. Mahoney, I'm pleased also that the date is pretty current. We're looking at October data 20 days after it occurred. That window's starting to get closer and closer and closer, so whatever systems you're doing or how you're encouraging your folks to do the work, great. And I know a big person of that is Dan Moore, and I don't see him out there, but Dan's magic produces sort of the numbers here. What also I'm pleased with is it looks like in some cases we're happy to have additional revenue, and we see additional revenue in this report in several categories. Some I'm not wanting to say government loves money, but we like to get it. The $2.6 million in excess property taxes that we collected in this is really the lack of the math. We don't really know what our assessed values are. We estimate that when we set the taxes, and then the money comes in. So I get the $2.6 million. The auto registration tax being $2 million higher than we forecast concerns me, because I did have quite a number of complaints on registration fees and the increase thereof. What's driving the $2 million in increased fees?
When we did our estimates, we had to make some assumptions about the age of the cars that were being registered. And when the Treasury Group looked at historical data, they assumed some cars would be 1-year-old, 2-year-old, whatever. And the actuals have come in differently, and as a result, the revenues have been higher.
So is there a case to reduce auto registration fees in this scenario?
Before I'd answer that, I would like to go back and reevaluate it. I recall that our registration fee was comparable to the Mat-Su Valley.
Obviously, thank you for that answer. Obviously, we have to wait for the expenses to close out. Business runs off of revenues and expenses, and this forecasts about a $5.7 million excess revenues. How much do you think of this is going to turn into surplus? I know that's a hard question for you, but
As you know, it is a function of the weather, the investment market, our IGCs.
revenue is or expenses?
Surplus is a combination of both revenues and expenses. And so to the extent we have additional revenues and expenses would remain the same, then this would be all surplus.
And I think I know the answer to this, but this just defaults into fund balance. Is that what happens to it?
That's correct.
And then so what the mechanism is to get it back out is an assembly appropriation.
That is correct. After we close the books, about in mid-March, usually it's the third week in March, the financials are available, and it identifies our unassigned fund balance by fund. And as we go through our first quarter budget process, the Assembly makes a decision about how that money will be distributed.
So far, in the operating budgets that are in front of us now for next year's budget spending plan, this surplus or this forecasted revenue positive isn't part of your budget building process for next year, then you don't anticipate any additional surplus revenues carrying forward in your budgets. Is that right?
That is correct.
I don't think I have anything else. I just want to make sure that we keep our eyes on that, and then you, as you get closer to the end of the year, help us with those expense reports so that we can put the two together. So I'm appreciative of that. My last question is about TAPS, and you show it on this report, the $4.5 million set aside, and that's, as my understanding is, it's in a Superior Court challenge. When do you know more about it? Because you put it on this report, and I guess I didn't always see it on other reports.
It's been on the report since April, which is when we actually received the funds. The TAPS case will go to the Alaska Supreme Court in December, and then the Supreme Court may take a year or longer to rule on it. So in the interim, because we could potentially lose the case, we have decided to set aside this money as a reserve. And in our fund balance at the end of the year, it would be assigned, therefore not able to spend.
That's the $4.5 million on the report, but the $5.7 million is not tapped at this point.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thanks for that information.
Mr. Train.
Lucinda, back to cars fee registration. Do we set a limit on how old cars can be before we don't tax them any longer? I've got classic car owners that are a little upset.
Mr. Trini, I don't know the answer to that, but I will find out and get back with you.
For me, man, because we need some rational area at which we stop taxing classic cars. People have them and never use them. They just keep them in their garage till their spouse catches them. Like in my case. We'll set out in the garage. Thank you, Lucinda.
Mr. Trombley.
Lucinda, going back to the TAPS ruling, depending on how the Supreme Court rules, if they rule in our favor and that money stays with the municipality, the $4.5 million, does that also just kick into fund balance? At which point, or is that money restricted, unrestricted?
If we would win at the Supreme Court level, that money it just falls to fund balance as unassigned. But I should also point out that we have also previously, 2 years ago, we reserved 4.5, so the total would be $9 million.
So that $9 million, now I know it depends on when the Supreme Court would rule, but if they ruled in, say, July or August, would that additional money then be dealt with at some point in time for that following year's first quarter budget revisions? Is that when that money would be dealt with?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Drummond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I find it interesting that there's an overcollection in the auto registration taxes. Back in February, I do believe, Ms. Gray Jackson and I brought forward an ordinance which failed this body and which was going to refund about $1.9 million to the folks who overpaid by having to pay for their IM test as well as this new vehicle registration tax at the beginning of the year. I knew this was going to happen. Thank you.
There is no one else in the queue. Please vote. Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
That item passes unanimously. We now have before us, under old business, item 13A, and, no, to 6.
Move to postpone indefinitely, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We've got to open it. What? Yep. No. Because of the fact we're caught in a time issue here, would you please make your motion?
I move to go into an executive session to receive legal advice and strategies regarding potential litigation involving the Port of Anchorage.
Second.
Any objection? Seeing, hearing none, we're going to move into an executive session. I call the meeting back to order after an executive session. Ms. Johnston.
I'd like to move that we seal all information from this executive session for 5 years due to the information might adversely affect the finances of the municipality.
Second.
Okay. Any objection? Seeing and hearing none, that will stand. Mr. Trainee.
Just I would have rather had 10 years. But since we already agreed to 5, let's just go with that.
Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I do apologize. We are going to break for 15 minutes. We didn't do a dinner break. We've been in executive session since we broke earlier. So we will be back and reopen this meeting at 10 to 7. Because there's a lot more people here than when I opened the meeting earlier. We will be opening testimony on the Tesoro. The applicant has pulled that. We have to open public testimony. No one testifies, or if they do, we'll immediately clear the deck with that one. I want anyone here in regards to John Thomas to know that we are continuing testimony tonight. That testimony will continue until the 30th because it is going to be postponed until the 30th. So if you're here in regards to that, be aware that you can testify, but you can only testify once. Just a bit of a heads up to anyone here with the youth court. We want to make you aware that an amendment is being addressed in regards to the youth court. I don't know exactly what form that's going to take, but I want you to know that there are members on the body that have heard you and are working to some degree in your behalf. So with that, I'm going to bring before us item 13A. It is AR number 220, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly approving an alcoholic beverage conditional use for a package store use.
Chairman.
Thank you. This item is before us for public testimony. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none, this item is before the body.
Move to postpone indefinitely.
Any objections? Seeing and hearing none, that is postponed indefinitely. Yeah. Mr. Flynn? Yes, Mr. Chairman. Any objection to postponing indefinitely item 13A? None whatsoever. Thank you. My apologies. Some of these items in our packet are many, many pages long, and I'm having to move back to 13B. Okay, I now have before us AO number 97, an ordinance authorizing disposal of real property known as the John Thomas Building and legally described as Lots 9. Thank you. This item is before us for public testimony. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? And ladies and gentlemen, be assured that we will be here to hear you, so you can be seated till you rise to speak. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Mike Bronson. My last name is Bronson. I'm a resident of Chairman Hall's district in the Old Turnagain neighborhood. Thank you for letting me speak on behalf of the local National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. I'm a member. I wanted to ask the Assembly to postpone this ordinance and give the tenants in the building an opportunity to work with the city staff on an alternative arrangement. I appreciate Assemblyman Honeman's suggestion to that effect at the September 28th workshop. But to give you an idea of what it is that we'd be using the period for, I'd like to walk through a set of documents and details that many of us in the John Thomas Building feel we need to have on hand and have a chance to look at in order to work responsibly with your city staff on an alternative arrangement. The first would be an asbestos report. Assemblyman Trainee asked the city staff, the city engineer, for an asbestos report several weeks ago, and the staff agreed to that. That would be very useful for us. In fact, I think an asbestos report would be part of any due diligence package if the city proceeds with disposing of the building. Secondly, I recommend that we have a chance to take a look at the city's records of inspections. The engineers have done a number of inspections of the building systems, from the boiler to the roof to the piping systems, for us to understand what risks we're taking on and what we're walking into when it comes to managing the building. Potentially, it'd be valuable for us to have take a look at the engineers' reports relative to those inspections. And thirdly, and not least, it would be really valuable for the tenants and the city, for that matter, to take a look at the original documents that set up the community development block grant that I understand is part of the John Thomas Building's arrangements with the tenants. The community development block grant, to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars, is what's largely responsible for the NAACP and many of the other community service members to use that building on a low rent basis. It would be really valuable for us to take a look at the original terms of that agreement so we understand what the obligations are on the part of the city and the Housing and Urban Development Department, as well as ourselves. And we'd like to take a look at the procedures that the city is obligated to follow when it comes to relocating tenants, when it comes to making changes in the use in the building. So to wrap it up, there's a handful of examples of the documents that we think are fairly available for the most part from the city. Would be documents that I think that they would make available in most general title transfer proceedings is under a due diligence effort as well. So for those reasons, I'd encourage the Assembly to put off this ordinance and give the city staff and ourselves several months to look at those documents and to get together and work out an alternative arrangement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There are no questions.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Ruth Dawson, and I'm with Mabel T., and I'm the Vice President of the Board. And I would like to say that the John Thomas Building, that there are several nonprofit organizations of which Mabel T. is one of them.
Ma'am, I'm sorry to cut you off. Could you pull the microphone in front of your face that way? You can hear you. Thank you.
You couldn't hear me? Okay, all of these organizations offer a variety of services for many individuals. So this means the John T. Thomas Building is a one-shop place where you can shop really for whatever it is that you need to be helped, you know. And being a member of Mabel T. has been a huge benefit for me. It has provided me at 90 years old to have transportation for getting out to shop, go to lunch with other seniors, out-of-town trips, and in general, a good feeling about being around others like myself. To sell the John Thomas Building, we would lose so much that is helpful to seniors. Our party room provides us with getting together to play games that exercise our brain, and we can have educational projects. There are food boxes that are given out the fourth Wednesday of the month, and we have a clothes closet and a food pantry. Please consider all of this in your decision. Thank you.
Just a moment. Mr. Trini?
Ma'am, just thank you for being here. We appreciate hearing from you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
If I may, when you introduce yourselves, please spell your name for us. Thank you.
Assembly members, members of staff, my name is Steve Beardsley, Beardsley. I've been a resident of Anchorage since 1973. Tonight I'm coming before you as Secretary for Mabel T. Caverly Senior Services, as in the role of Secretary. And the programs that our center offers are extensive. They may not affect a huge population, but in regards to food boxes, which Ms. Ruth talked about, distributed the food commodities program within our center has been a great use for upwards of 60 people per month for the 40-pound allotment of food. Food bank comes, we distribute it either by use of our van or members coming in. We also have, as Ruth said, a small food pantry where seniors who may be a little bit down on their luck don't want to utilize some of the other larger food pantries because they may have some embarrassments, things haven't been going their way, other problems exist. So we offer a free, no questions asked food pantry within our unit. If this was to disappear, I think it would affect quite a few people that have the pride of being a pioneer of Anchorage. Other programs that I think that would be pulled if we have to move out of our facility would be a Mabel's Closet, which brings in a small amount of money to us monthly, but it also is a great service for people to donate used or lightly used stuff for senior development, walkers, wheelchairs, those kind of entities, plus household goods. We have a very good mentorship with the UAA nursing program. That probably would have to disappear. We do have midday potlucks We have one group that is in there consistently for the past, well, since Mabel has been around. It's the wood carvers. They've grown from 5 people to probably 15 to 30 people every Monday. These are seniors, not just seniors. There's other people that come in and enjoy the camaraderie and socialization of it. The total number of lost clients, in our perspective, is about 3,000 people per year. That's not visits. That's 3,000 clients that we touch that would probably, if we had to move to a smaller area, we'd have to cut. At least $20,000 would have to be allocated for our growth or our movement into a smaller area, and we couldn't offer the services that we do. If we lost, we would expect to lose more people out of our mentorship with UAA nursing. The vulnerable population for emergency preparedness used to be as a headquarters for, with Mabel T. in conjunction with it, underneath with the Aware with Care program. And then I'll finish with that. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no questions.
If I may, I'll stand with Miss Susan. She has a little mobility problems.
That's fine.
Assembly members and staff, thank you very much for letting me come before you tonight. I will apologize once for my speaking voice, and only once. I do, it's terrible. Anyway.
Please introduce yourself and spell your name.
My name is Susan Faith, that is F-A-I-T-H. And for most of the last 30 years, I've been associated with Mabel T. Caverly Senior Services in both paid and volunteer roles. Presently, I serve on the board of directors, of which I am a past president. I'm retired but still actively involved in local senior services following a career that began in the early 1980s. 2 things appear inevitable to us. The first is that the John Thomas building will be sold at some point to somebody. And second, whether our agency stays where it is or has to relocate, the rent will be substantially higher. We are planning with both of those realities in mind. If our rent goes up to current market rates, somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.25 per square foot, we may only be able to afford it by reducing the size of our space. You've heard a little bit about that already. While we presently occupy 2,000 square feet, we might have to make do with half of that. Our current annual budget is $197,000, of which we spend not quite 3% in rent. That generous in-kind support from the municipality of Anchorage has allowed us to spread our program dollars over a wide array of programs, and we are grateful. A decrease of 50% in office space would cripple the array of donor-funded safety net services that bring the vulnerable, low to no income older residents of Anchorage to our doors. Here's a brief history of senior services organizations in our community. Mabel T. Caverly Senior Services, at one time called Mabel T. Caverly Senior Center, the Anchorage Senior Activities Center, Older Persons Action Group, and the Older Alaskans program, known better perhaps as Meals on Wheels, all sprang from the Older Americans Act in the 1970s. All are still in existence in our community, having adapted over time to changing needs in the city. And they continue to meet a wide range of needs throughout the city with no duplication of services. The Older Alaskans program is now a part of the Salvation Army's Older Social Services programs, delivering nearly 500 hot meals every day to homebound seniors. The Anchorage Senior Center, my goodness, I had a little more to say. I didn't realize I was so slow. Could I just get down to my...
Yes, ma'am, you may.
Thank you very much. I had wanted to say as a part of these remarks that throughout the history of all these organizations, the municipality has supported the Anchorage Senior Center, now known as the Anchorage Senior Activities Center, with funding from the operating budget, as it now does the Chugiak Senior Center as well. We have always been the recipient of in-kind rent. We don't really understand why that support is now being dropped for us. And we would request that the Assembly consider putting our agency in the operating budget for an annual amount of $30,000 to cover premises expense. Thank you very much.
Okay, I have some questions for you, Mr. Trini.
Ma'am, did you say everything you wanted to say?
I think there are probably enough people here who know the brief history of senior services that I left out. I'd be happy to tell you.
I just wanted to make sure you were done with your presentation, because I know that 3 minutes happens in a brief second, so.
Well, I figured at 500 words that I had it, but I didn't. I think the rest of it is.
Okay, Mr. Honeman.
Yes, sir.
So you've been involved with Mabel T. Calvary for how long?
I went to work for them in 1987.
87.
And I, for what it's worth, have also been employed at the Anchorage Pioneers Home, the Older Alaskans Program of the Salvation Army, and the Older Persons Action Group.
Well, I know that we have a growing, aging population in Anchorage, so I thank you for your service to the community in many roles, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing this information.
I've been here 50 years, so I did live through some of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Ashley Gaines. I am a student at University of Alaska Anchorage, a sophomore, and I'm here today to speak to the Assembly and the Mayor. Today, first, I'd like to ask the Mayor and the Assembly to think about the youth in the community of Anchorage that use the John Thomas Building for educational purposes. By selling the John Thomas Building, you would not only displace the seniors who direly need care and all these other organizations, but one organization in fact is the NAACP, which actually has a youth branch, also has the Youth Council and the AXO program. If this building were to be sold, there would be a displacement of the youth of the NAACP AXO program. And I'm one of those youth who has used the John Thomas Building. I'm a mentor now. I'm a college student. I mentor for the AXO program for 7 years. I'd like to say, if you don't know first what AXO stands for, it's Academic, Cultural, Technological, Scientific Olympics, or as you put it, Short Olympics of Mind, and it's a year-long enrichment program for high school students grades 9 through 12. It also enriches the mind of students of color through arts, music, medicine, and sciences, just to name a few. I would first like to ask the Assembly and Mayor to think of who they really would be displacing by selling this building, and if the Assembly does take a moment just to think about, the youth are our future, and I'm, not that old. I'm only 22. I'm still learning. But if you were to sell the John Thomas Building, you would be displacing some youth who need this mentoring for educational help, tutoring services, taking trips for learning purposes, and just basically enriching the minds, body, and soul of youth of this community. And I'm one of them. And I would like to say, I'd just like the Assembly and the Mayor to please take some time to think about the youth who will be running this country one day, and think about what you're doing before you sell the building. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jean Ward. I'm an Anchorage resident in West Turnagain for the past 25 years. My name is spelled Jeanward, and I'm committed to staying here through my retirement and hopefully die here. I'm 50 years old, as I've mentioned before, and the John Thomas Building is one of the great things about Anchorage. It's a fabulous place to live because the community invests in those organizations. And we have youth and older people being so well served by those wonderful dollars going in. And I can't imagine that that investment isn't a wise thing. And it seems short-sighted to sell this building and not invest those dollars that stretch so well. I understand that money's tight. I pay high taxes, and I'm pleased to do it for these kind of services. Please don't sell that building and displace these people. I use them, those services. I'll be using them as I get older, and I'm sure you will too, and most of the people here. We do have an aging community and young people and a great diversity. I'm very proud of Anchorage. I couldn't be more proud of it, and I'm proud of the work that you all do, and I ask you from the bottom of my heart, please don't sell that building and displace these people. It's incredibly well-serving and well-spent money. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Assembly. My name is Dale L. Reeves, and that's D-A-L-E-L-R-E-E-V-E-S. And all the people before me, I'm here on behalf of the John Thomas Building. I work for Mabel T. Caverly. I'm the transportation director, slash bus driver, bodyguard, chef. I do it all. I love it all. Everybody before me has really made some good points, and that I would hope and pray that you guys take into consideration. And as far as allowing the time frame to make a very conscious decision about what to do with this building and how to do it. But in my time that I've been there, a little over 2 years, I have seen, and we're talking about saving money here for the city, correct? Mayor, that's what you were talking about, and that's one of the main objectives. But like I said, the time that I've been there, I have seen so many people as the services, as all the people, nonprofit organizations within the John Thomas Building serve the community, help out the community in phases from 8 to 80, blind, crippled, and even some people may say crazy. But hey, that's an opinion. It's like noses, everybody's got one, right? The point is, please consider and to prolong and give adequate time on this decision so that the proper decision can be made. And I've seen these organizations save the city a lot of money in my little over 2 years of being there. And everybody before me, I hope this is all being recorded, because I don't need to be redundant in saying what has taken place as far as vocabulary, verbally. And I just thank you for your time. Thank you for the opportunity. And may God bless you all. And please reconsider and give an adequate time in this decision.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Assembly. My name is Macon Roberts, M-A-C-O-N-R-O-B-E-R-T-S, and I am a 46-year resident of Anchorage, and my take is a little different from what's been testified so far. We should not only save the John Thomas Building, but we have buildings in this town that gives historical significance to what our town is about. The Mabel T. Caverly Building, the George Sullivan Arena, the Lusac Library, all those buildings are teaching mechanism for populations to come. And when we sell a building like the John Thomas Building, who's a pioneer whom I knew before he died years ago when I first came here 46 years ago, then we are getting rid of teaching opportunities and opportunities for tourists who come to this city and learn about the kind of rich city and history and heritage that we have. So therefore, I don't think we should ever sell a building in this town that is named after anybody, including this facility which we are in now, because we thought enough of those people to name a building after them, and that should be a citadel for the quality of continuity for the city. I've been on school bus tours. I've talked with tourists who have toured around the city to went to places like the Denana Center and places like that with names. And they talked with me about it, and I have told them that I knew when some of these places were named. So thank you very much, and if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to do it. But I love this city, and I left to come here for a few weeks, for summer, and I'm 46 years still here because of the quality of these people in this city, and this is a very significant issue to keep the names on every building in this city that's named after people, tribes, and other people. And the last thing I'll say is that we'll have buildings named after other groups of people that haven't been named yet, and those will be teaching and learning and valuable names that generation will find out about their people or these people after whom they've been named after. So please consider the significance, importance of not just this building, but the names on our buildings that we have.
Mr. Trini has a question for you.
Thank you.
Macon, thank you for coming here tonight, sir.
Appreciate it,
Always a
sir.
pleasure to see you.
Thank you.
Mr. Honeman.
Same thing, Mr. Roberts, Megan Roberts. I appreciate the opportunity to have a little bit of teaching moment at the moment. Is there something, Mr. John Thomas might you know about him that you could share just in a few brief sentences that you might?
I sure can. Yeah, Reverend Thomas came up with, he grew up with small means, had to work his way through school and help his family and so forth. But he was the kind of individual that would take time with youngsters like I was at the time and others, and he had a heart of gold. And I cannot be more happy that this building was named for him. He was a giving person, he was a classy person, and he worked his way up by his bootstrap, and he was a good example for those of us that, as myself, who worked my way through the cotton fields to get a college education. So this building has a lot of meaning for so many poor kids like he was to have a building with that statue named after him. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You can
Renee
pin that
Lacey.
down. Just
I'm sorry? Thanks. Thanks. Renee Lacey, Lacy. Please preserve the John Thomas building for Linda and Doc and Ozzy. Please preserve the John Thomas building for Flapper and Teresa. You were all kids in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and had three good meals, had and have 3 good meals a day, clothes for every season, and some of the best health preservements in the world. Please help to preserve a good quality of life for our kids from birth to 18, including some of these people who just spoke. You will all be senior citizens and will still need healthy choices of food and clothes for every weather condition, a safe place to sleep, and at some point an accessible bathroom and maybe even a PCA. Please help preserve a good quality of life for our senior citizens and our disabled residents at any age and skill level. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question for you, Mr. Horniman.
I just wanted, Renee, thank you for coming tonight and sharing that with us. And it was very well spoken, and I could understand exactly what you're saying. Thank you so much.
Anytime. And may I ask, my sister is upstairs. I told her I'd be back up there at 7. I also told her I was here for the people mover question and answer time. What's going on with that?
Okay. We'll get to that for you. Thank you.
Okay.
There'll be another opportunity to speak, right, Mr. Chairman, if she wants to come? Okay.
Yes. Thank you. Anyone else to testify? Anyone at all?
I rise in favor of selling the building. If it's a money loser for the city and the city doesn't want to be a landlord, or shouldn't be a landlord, actually, I think we should sell the building, let a private agency take it over, become the landlord, and maintain the John Thomas building as it is, rent it out to the people that either are in it now or whoever else wants to use the thing. Making the story and the history of the John Thomas building is probably a good starting point for the agencies that are in the building to relook at their missions a little bit. The building may change ownership, but I don't think, and I don't see anywhere in here where we're kicking everybody out, or that the agencies are going to be disbanded, or go away, or disappear. We're just simply changing hands for the building. Most of the testimony here seems to imply that selling the building means disbanding the agencies. If John Thomas could pull himself up with his bootstraps a little bit and become something, well, maybe the agencies need to do a little more fundraising. If they can't afford the rise in price from, 25 cents a square foot, which sounds pretty subsidized, and that's me, the taxpayer, doing the subsidizing. Maybe, they need, like I say, look at the John Thomas as an example, and work a little harder, do a little more fundraising. There's plenty of opportunity out there for that, and these organizations should still continue. I see no reason that they're going to go away. We're just changing ownership of the building. The city doesn't need to be a landlord. And maybe the organizations, if they're really tight, should talk to the labor unions in the city. They're the primary cause for the city to be tight on the budget. Maybe they can help chip in a little bit and help these people out and continue the subsidy that's 25 cents a square foot. There is a quid pro quo there. There's a cause and effect. You take the money to do for one thing, you can't afford to do another thing.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Karen Crawley, C-R-O-W-L-E-Y. Good evening, Mayor and the Assembly. I didn't come here to speak on behalf of the John Thomas Building. I came on behalf of the Anchorage Youth Corps, but I've been impressed by what the gentleman said. And I have to say that every time I go down 4th Street, sometimes I get lost because I point to that building and tell my grandchildren a black man is responsible for that building. And I want them to be able to aspire to constructive leadership in this community. But that building is very significant to me because it bears the name of John Thomas. I have utilized some of the services there when I first came here, and I don't have to use them now. But that building is sort of historical because I want my grandchildren, who are very young, to aspire to do as well as John Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none, I'm going to close this session on this item. We will continue the public testimony.
Move to postpone to October 30th.
We've got a motion to postpone. Any objection? Mr. Flynn? The administration believes so. Okay. Very well. That will be continued to the meeting of the 30th. We now have before us item 14A, AO number 103, an ordinance waiving or modifying certain provisions of Title 21 and delegating authority to the Community Development Department to review and approve a temporary conditional use permit. Thank you. This item is before us for public testimony. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none, this item is before the body.
Move to approve.
Okay, see no one in the queue, please vote. Mr. Flynn? That item carries unanimously. We now have before us item number 14B, AR number 231, a resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating $250,000 of federal seized and forfeited monies to the federal state. Thank you. This item is before us for public testimony. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none, this item is before us. Mr. Trombley.
Ms. Mahoney, do you know what the fund balance is in the forfeiture fund as of now? You probably don't have it top of your head, but
I believe it is 1.8 million, and then this would be a reduction from that number.
okay, thank you.
Seeing no one else in the queue, please vote. Mr. Flynn. It didn't. Yeah, they're here. Okay, we need that motion made verbally.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Flynn? Okay. That motion carries unanimously. We now have before us item number 14C, AR number 234, a resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating $149,680 as a contribution. Thank you. This item is before the body. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none, this item is before the body.
Move to approve.
Seeing no one in the queue, please vote. Mr. Flynn? That item carries unanimously. We have now before us item 14D, AR number 235, a resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating $1,399,907. Thank you. This item is before the body. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none?
Approve.
Seeing no one in the queue, please vote. Mr. Flynn. That item carries unanimously. We now have before us item 14E, AO number 81, an ordinance of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly to provide for a refund, rebate, or reduction of 2012 property taxes based on the change in the public education formula for school funding from the state of Alaska. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all?
Richard Braun again. I was here and listened to you guys debate the mill rates that you established for this year. And part of the deal was that we're going to raise the mill rates a little bit to help cover ASD in case the state didn't come through with a sort of promised funding source for the school system. Well, the state did come through with it. And in the discussion that you all had, the majority of you agreed that should the state actually provide the money, that this extra mill rate increase would be returned to the people, since it was being a situation where you're overtaxing them for the purposes of supporting the school system. I just want to remind you that that was the deal. I'd like to see you go through with it and not go, hey, we just found new money and let's use it for something else. Since we don't need it to run the school system, let's return it back to the people from whence it came. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none, this item is before the body.
Move to approve.
Second.
And I'm going to speak to it. I guess those that can read the title up there don't have the paper in front of me, but we're talking about $8.1 million, so it's not a small amount of money. Ms. Mahoney, you and I have chatted on this topic a lot. I think the body up here knows how passionate I am, but this is basically surplus tax dollars. And as Mr. Braun, who studies our work up here with some passion, I think has identified is our current budget year, this year, all of our funding needs have been met. The state came through back in April and May and funded the school district, and we went ahead and sent out tax bills as well. We over-collected $8.1 million, and I have, since July, asked to give the money back to the taxpayers, and that's been postponed till now, appropriately or not. I still believe it's the right thing to do. It becomes cluttered because we have what they call the tax cap. And technical speak, and I get this because I've had to learn it, is that we set the tax cap. Our ability to tax next year is based on how much money we collect this year. And so the fact of the matter is that if we give the money back, it affects our ability to tax next year. And so it's a clear topic for those that study the budgets, and I do. I try to do the right thing when it comes to those that I represent. I see a lot of blue shirts out there, and Mr. Chairman referenced an amendment that talks about doing the right thing. Some of the money in this will probably be a solution for that. However, I'm not ready to tax to the cap and have a budget surplus. And so I'm going to ask for support. I get the fact on the tax cap. An earlier item, folks, we had $5.7 million identified as operational spending. Kudos to the mayor for doing that. We overtaxed in some situations in that regard through registration taxes, and it's not a pure science. I recognize that. But pretty soon it becomes real money. $8.5 million plus $5.7 million. We're setting up the tax rates for next year. This is stressful to me. I want to give the money back. This was a fiscal Christmas present, and I want to put some presents under the table for those that pay our tax bills. We have the money, folks. We can give it back. So it's not going to pass. I can tell you counting noses. I can tell the attitudes of thereabouts. But, I don't know how much more clear we need to be in a vote. But I'm going to support the taxpayers here. I will also support the budget needs of those that are requesting money in the next items. That's what I do as well. But it's time to give the money back to the taxpayers. That's my plea.
Ms. Drummond?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is, how is this amount of money going to affect the ability to fund the B budget?
If you're asking me, this is not part of anything that's the mayor's asking for in the B budget. He's given us a slide at the work session that talks about putting money into one-time uses and a Warren radio system, Fund 181 in the building department. He's got some earmarked items for that, but again, it doesn't require us. What does require is the ability to tax, and that's how this is tied to this, Ms. Drummond. So the money's not necessary for this budget nor next year's budget, but the tax capacity is.
Thank you.
Mr. Horniman?
I think that part asked Mr. Drummond's got on point. Mr. Starr, is my understanding that one-time funding, was this also for police and fire academy in 2013? Was that funding included?
Well, that was the presentation, I think, in terms of how any budget surplus would be accounted for.
Right.
But again, I guess I respectfully ask for us to kind of preserve that in taxes, because if it goes down tonight, I'm not going to let up. There's going to be some sort of tax rebate. If we agree to tax to the cap, right, we've got to send this money back. We don't need it both.
Well, and I agree with the easing the burden on the taxpayers. I've long supported that. However, there's concern that we've got some real gaps in our public safety in particular, and as you see the blue shirts, we've got some other programs that are very, very good and very solid programs that we could find that funding for. I'm not sure if that's included. Is Anchorage Youth Court funding involved in this, the administration?
It's not, Mr. Honeman, but if an amendment was made to use one-time funding as a bridge, I know Mr. Flynn had expressed some desire to explore possibilities over the next number of months for youth court funding. So as a stopgap, we probably would not be opposed to using one-time money for that. We normally don't recommend that, obviously, and as Mr. Starr alluded to, we've got any number of items on the books that we would like to, they're liabilities essentially, things that have to be paid. I don't know where you find the source of money to pay those liabilities, if you don't somehow get it from the taxpayers. This was money collected, probably early from the taxpayers, but it doesn't make those liabilities any less real or any less valuable to the city. And at some point, I wanted to have the ledger clear when this administration leaves so that we don't have things sitting on the books for the next administration to wonder how the heck are we going to pay for these things, and we inherited a bunch of those, as you know, and I want to leave a clean slate for the next administration. We've got the opportunity to do some of those things, and It's just, obviously your decision on where to go with that.
Ms. Gray Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Starr, first, I'd like to thank you for bringing this ordinance forward before this body. I think it's a really, really good idea, except when we had the additional money from municipal revenue sharing, the $6.4 million that I voted to give back to the property taxpayers was a very, very good idea, and it was the only thing to do. It was the right thing to do. Although I think your ordinance is a good idea, I always want to be able to say to the taxpayer, hey, we got extra money, I'd like to return this to you. But in this circumstance, I don't think that it's a really good idea. This community has been suffering for years. You're paying more taxes and you're getting less services. The administration at our work session talked about some things that they wanted to do with this money, and they were very, very good ideas, and I agree with them 100%. I may even ask them to outline that for you this evening. But the bottom line is this, folks, if we don't use this money already collected and allowed under the tax cap, we're going to have to find money somewhere, and the somewhere is going to be your taxes anyway. First and foremost, folks, you cannot expect services for a population of 200,000 to cost the same for a population of what we are close to right now, 300,000. Part of the money that the administration wants to use is for police academy, at least to start, and fire academy, and we're already facing budget cuts in those areas for next year. We have an opportunity to take this money already collected. Yes, it's your tax dollar, just mine too, but we live in this community, and the quality of services that we all deserve and pay a lot of taxes for can be enhanced by taking this money and doing the right thing with it this time, folks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Osiander?
Administration, could you recap some of the items that you had, I don't want to use the word earmarked, but you had suggested that this be used for?
Yeah, if you go to the back page of your S version of 2012-99S, we list some of them, and certainly it's not all inclusive. It's just some of the ones that, are at the top of our list, including the Police Academy for 2013, the Fire Academy for 2013, the CAMA system, which we're hoping to implement next year without going into more debt, the AWARN system, which we basically have to get in line with the state of Alaska on so we can communicate in emergencies, and reduction of the fund balance deficit in the 181 fund. All those add up to, I think, about $12 million. So, there's not sufficient funds to do all of them, but that's just a partial list. I could list more, but those were the ones that probably were the highest priority.
Okay. And then my second question is, specifically, what would be the impact on the tax cap next year, and it would lower it by?
F14F. A comparable amount, yes.
Thank you.
So you not only take, say, $7 or $8 million off the table for spending today, but you lower the cap accordingly for next year. So it's about a $16 million value reduction.
Thank you.
Mr. Trainee.
Mr. Mayor, on 2012-81, I'm concerned about youth court and tasers for the police department. You and I talked about that. Hope we can find money if we turn this down to make that become a reality, Mr. Mayor. So I'll support you in saying no to this. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Trainee. And just a reminder, too, that, the operating budget we've proposed is a couple $100,000 under the tax cap, so you still have capacity there, too.
I know, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Thank you.
Ms. Johnston?
This might be a difficult question to answer, but if we rebated this, what would be the amount that property taxpayers would get for a $100,000 assessment? And then do we have an estimate of the cost of actually doing the rebating? And I'm sorry to spring this on you now.
Through the chair, our treasurer, Dan Moore, had estimated a cost for a rebate, and I recall it to be around $500,000. In regard to the question about the cost per $100,000, I would need to do the math on that and get back with you. I'll send you an email.
Thank you.
Mr. Starr?
All good reasons. I'm not going to let up, folks. It's coming back, and I agree. But we're going to go down that path of taxing to the cap. I'm not going on record to agree to tax to the cap. And this money is for this year's budget. We need to have some fiscal responsibility for the decisions that we made up till now. We've met our budgets, we're under budget, and however you package it, it's not our money. We couldn't even come up with ideas to appropriate it now. The school district didn't even ask us for it. It's available. I'll give you credit on the tax cap, Mr. Mayor, but I'm not going to let you go to the cap with it. We've got to give some of this money back in that, and if it's a compromise statement, great. If I can't support the budget because of it, that's fine, and this is about as passionate as I get. And Ms. Mahoney, then we're going to have to come up with a new way. If it's $500,000 to send checks out, I mean, we can send electronics, I can check my account online, we send out tax bills like they're nothing, but yet we can't send back a tax check. I'm just, not challenged by that. We just need to come up with a better way of sending back money to the taxpayers. So that's all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
There's no one else in the queue. Please vote. Mr. Flynn. Could you repeat it, Mr. Flynn?
I said, with much regret, Mr. Chairman, at this time I must vote no.
That motion fails 3-8. We now have before us item 14F, AO number 99, an ordinance to the Municipal Anchorage adopting and appropriating funds for the 2013 general government operating budget for the municipality of Anchorage.
Waive reading.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Ms. Johnston.
I'd like to make a motion to combine public hearings 14F, G, H, I, J, K, L, and M.
Second.
Second. Any objection? Seeing and hearing none, we will combine all of those items for public testimony. Mr. Trainee.
Could you tell everybody they can sit down? We will get to everybody. You don't need
Right.
to stand up and pass out. Please.
We will be here, so be comfortable. Everyone will get an opportunity to testify.
We're not going home till you guys are done or midnight hits. So take a seat and get comfortable. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Flynn, can you give us your vote on combining the public hearing?
Oh, I absolutely support that, Mr. Chairman. It's a very good idea.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Yes, sir.
My name is Bob Lupo, Senior. That's Lima Uniform, Papa, Oscar, Sierra, Romeo. United States Army retired, been a resident of Eagle River for almost 30 years. I am concerned about this budget's endangerment of the Eagle River residents. The first priority of any government is to ensure the safety of its citizens. Eliminating Truck 11 is not providing for the safety of its citizens. Not only that, but you're not even saving any money on the budget, because all you're doing is taking the 9 firemen who are associated with that truck and moving them to Anchorage. So it's not even a question of saving money. Understand also that the Eagle River Fire Station services locations that are 12 miles up Eagle River Road and about 12 miles up Highland Road. And that is they are the first responders. If they get to a location that is 12 miles away and they decide that they need a ladder truck, then they have to call Chugiak Volunteer Fire Department or Anchorage Fire Department. If it's in the middle of wintertime and they have to come from Anchorage to Eagle River and then 12 miles up an icy road, up Highland Road, you're talking about maybe an hour before the responders can get there. That's not acceptable. Now, they're talking about eliminating the firemen because the ladder truck isn't used very much. Whoa, what kind of convoluted logic is that? You got to be kidding me. I mean, you don't use the emergency equipment enough, so you should eliminate it. So you should go home and trash all of your fire extinguishers because you never use them, right? That is totally insane. This truck, Truck 11, has rear-wheel steering. That means it can make it. It is the only vehicle that can make it up hairpin turns up Highland, up not Highland, but, also Highland, but up Skyland Drive. So what is happening here is by eliminating these firemen and eliminating the capability of operating Truck 11, you are endangering the people that live on these roads. And that is just not acceptable. So, you should also understand that when you remove existing, potentially life-saving equipment from use, it borders on criminal negligence. And you will have to take the responsibility of anyone who dies because that truck is not there and it might have been the unit that they needed to save them. And that truck also was used just a short time ago to save an individual in a kayak on a river.
Sir, I'm going to need you to summarize.
I'm done.
Okay, Mr. Trainee has a question.
You do remember they used the entire crew from Truck 11 to save that gentleman.
I'm sorry?
You remember they used their entire crew to save that gentleman from swiftwater death. And if they pull that truck out, the next person that needs them won't find them. They'll have to call Muldoon for refillments.
That's correct.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it, sir.
Mr. Horniman.
You guys do a good job. Just remember to keep us safe.
Thank you, Bob, for your testimony. That's it.
Chairperson Hall and Assembly members, my name is Dixie Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T. I'm here with my daughter, Jasmine Durkis, and granddaughter, Dacre Wright, in support of the Anchorage Fire Department and explain why we feel that the removal of the fire engine and personnel from Eagle River Fire Station is not only a bad move, but a slap in the face for the residents of Eagle River. We are some of the victims of a house fire in Eagle River. On January 6th of 2007, a frantic call from a 14-year-old babysitter came in at 911, reporting that a house was on fire on Eagle River Road, with 4 small children involved and trapped inside. Either through a misunderstanding of the dispatcher or an incoherency of the caller, the call was dispatched to Eagle Street at Anchorage rather than to Eagle River Road. The error was discovered and the call was redirected to Eagle River. It resulted in a delay of 2 to 5 minutes. This is a picture of the results of 2 to 5 minutes on 2 children in that home. The results of the fire was 2 small children's lives and a lifelong battle for 2 more. This is the results of a 15-minute delay, which is what you are asking us to have if we have to respond from Muldoon. 15 minutes is going to result in more funerals. The fire occurred on a sunny winter morning within a few days of a holiday. When the budget is approved as it is, it would most likely have occurred while the station was closed due to the overtime restrictions that you're placing on the fire department. If that facility was closed, we would have to call the station from Muldoon to respond to that fire. A 15-minute delay with a truck dispatched from Muldoon. I'm not saying that the lives of my grandchildren would have been saved if that delay had not happened. What I am saying is that the damage received by the surviving grandchildren would have been less severe. 2 to 5 minutes in carbon monoxide is a result of brain damage. 15 minutes is a death. I also know that the results of a 15-minute delay from the Muldoon station, it also involves a 20 to 25-minute delay from the Chugach Fire Department. They have to go to the station, get the truck, and then respond. Not having a staff station in Eagle River would result in more losses. When you discuss and decide the outcome of this station, think of the pain, the fear that my grandchildren went through just through 2 to 5 minutes. A delay caused by a misdirected call. Imagine what your children, your grandchildren, or you would go through with a 15 to 20-minute delay on top of a misdirected call. Thank you.
Mr. Horniman has a question.
Thank you for sharing your very emotional story as a grandfather myself. I guess my first concern is are you a resident then of the area?
I am a resident of Chugach and volunteer fire department. They are the residents of Eagle River.
Okay, and have you shared your concerns with your assembly persons as well?
Yes,
we have, as well as contacted the Alaska Star to bring it also to their
attention. Okay, thank you.
Good evening again, Renee Lacy, Lacy. No offense to anyone who was already in line, but I have to be back outside at 8. May I share my people mover concerns?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I would just like to say, I'm really nervous, I'm sorry. I vote for Plan B. I mean, I don't know if we're allowed to really do that in person, but I vote for Plan B. And I'm not complaining about the changes mentioned in the Plan A, but if somebody asked me what would I change, I would take away the extra benches at Spenard and Benson. I would take away the extra benches at Muldoon, and I would take away the extra benches at Red Apple. Not all the seats, because I believe that each bus stop needs one bench for senior and disabled bus users, moms with kids, and people with a lot of bags, or just one or two heavy ones. But I would, if I was going to change anything, if I could change anything in People Mover from the way it is now, I would just say one bench and one trash can at each bus stop. Keep the hospital bus stops the way they are, because those are big bus stops and they are part of the hospital where there's more people who would need the seats, and not just lazily hog them up. If I think of anything else, I will call or snail mail or email. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Estrada Bernard. That's spelled Bernard. I've been a member of Anchorage Youth Court for about a year, and in that time, I've come to realize how important AOIC is to the community. For those of you who don't know, AOIC is a diversionary justice program in which youth offenders are tried and sentenced by a court of their peers rather than going through the conventional justice system. Since joining AOIC, I have acted as both a prosecuting and defending attorney, and I currently serve on the board of directors. AOIC is undoubtedly a huge benefit, not only to the community as a whole, but to all of those who actually interact with the program, both as defendants and as student volunteers. For the student volunteers, such as myself, the list of benefits is quite long. Among them, better public speaking skills, increased confidence, and better interpersonal skills. To those who go through AOIC as defendants, they are given a second chance at life. After completing an AOIC sentence, the crime is struck from the official record, and they are able to honestly say that they have never been convicted of a crime, a huge asset when it comes to applying for jobs or for colleges. For me personally, AOIC has proven to be an amazing program. I feel much more confident speaking in front of crowds, and my skills in debate and in logic are much improved. AOIC has also helped me to plan for my future, as I am now aiming towards a career in law, based on the experiences that I've had in the courtroom. More importantly is the feeling that I get from being able to help those in a time of need. There is nothing more satisfying than being able to walk out of the courtroom knowing that I have played a part in giving one of my peers a second chance, an opportunity to maintain a clean slate. AOIC has helped me to realize the importance of helping others, a lesson that I will carry for the rest of my life. Thank you for your time, and I hope that you continue to support AOIC in the coming years.
Thank you. Mr. Horniman has a question.
Mr. Bernard?
Yes, sir.
Might I ask, how old are you?
16.
Pretty sharp, young man, pretty sharp. And I see a bunch of blue shirts. I don't know if everybody's going to testify. How many people are here in support of Anchorage Youth Court, continued funding, current level? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Terry Gottstein. Last name is spelled Gottstein. I'm here to testify in support of Anchorage Youth Court. I have kind of a unique perspective on this. These days, what I'm doing is I'm doing college admissions mentoring for high school students and for grad students, and also doing college prep workshops for the Anchorage School District with my business partner. And that's basically how I became aware. I mean, I was aware of Anchorage Youth Corp, but in working with students, that's how I become aware of Anchorage Youth Corp. I'll go into that in a second, but first, for those of you who pride yourself on being fiscal conservatives, I don't have all of the statistics, and I'm sure there are others here who will testify to that, but for those of you who do pride yourself on being fiscal conservatives, for what it costs to incarcerate 8 youths, okay, 8 youths for 1 year, that covers the whole cost of the Anchorage Youth Court program. Last year, I believe that they had 255 cases that they handled that were referred to them. So it's kind of a no-brainer in terms of the budget. You're saving a ton of money by having these volunteers operate this program. So I'm kind of mystified why that would be something that you would cut when A, it's working, and B, it's saving money. It's an investment. Plus, it's an investment in the future, not just of the kids, the defendants who get a second chance in life. I'm sure someone else will speak to the recidivism rate, which is very low for these kids. The second chance that they get, but also what it does to enrich the lives of the volunteers and open their eyes to what else is going on around them. The reason I became aware of it is because this is exactly the kind of activity that colleges look for. When our Alaska kids are applying to the top colleges outside, they want something that has community service, that's an extracurricular activity, where they're doing something for someone besides themselves, that shows leadership. This is a model program for the whole nation, and it's done on a shoestring. And it's a shoestring that you guys are looking to cut, which is beyond me why you would do that. I mean, it always mystifies me when there are programs that are working and saving money, that's where you look to cut. I'm very pleased to hear that there are those of you who are considering an amendment to the budget to include Anchorage Youth Court. I believe it's $205,000 that you're thinking of cutting. Given what it saves, it just, like I say, it mystifies me. So I want to thank those of you who are looking at amending the budget, and I hope it's not just a one-time funding issue. These kids are also raising money. It's not like they're sitting back. The volunteers are raising money. They're not just sitting back and saying, okay, give me this so we can do this program. In addition to I'm almost done. In addition to the time that they spend volunteering, they are also out there fundraising. So anyway, my time is up, and I thank you for
your time is up, but Mr. Starr has a question.
I like the word fiscal responsible.
I figured.
What happened is we inherited the budget. It's not our cuts to make. We are now going to decide to put it in there, and for what it's worth, I'm one of the movers of the amendment. It's just a matter of figuring it out. I also don't like to move amendments until I hear from everybody. So we have the public hearings for this meeting and the next one, and then we sort of package things together. But, you know, I can assure you I understand the value of the program. We do our homework. Most of us do up here, but what we have is the mayor's version of it, and that's the cuts.
No, I understand that, and I think the mayor must have had his head up in the clouds or something, because I just am really, frankly, mystified, Mr. Mayor, about why you would cut such a worthwhile program.
I defend that, because I don't, that's not the kind of relationship we have. There's some things that are appropriate, and this is appropriate government. We're discussing it, and so I think the attitude that we're not hearing and we're not compassionate both to the fire needs and to that, it's a challenging process because there's a lot of things. You're very focused on youth court. You understand it very well. We're focused on just
I understand just from hearing tonight there are a lot of valuable programs.
There's progress there, and it's not to minimize the testimony. It's just to tell you that we'll move it, and if I'm the maker of it, it'll get done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Birch.
I had a question. You know, you talked about 255 cases. Having some familiarity with the prosecutor's office and the district attorney's office, there's 255 victims. Can you speak to the victims and how the victims, I mean, is there satisfaction kind of across the board with the program and how justice is meted out with the program? And I just don't know. And I just wonder if you
Neither do I. I'm not familiar with that aspect of the program, and maybe there's someone else here tonight who can speak to that. I guess there are other people who can, but I'm also sensitive to the victims, but as I understand it, it's only certain crimes that are referred to youth court, and I'm sure that there are others here who are more knowledgeable than I am about this.
Thank you.
Mayor Sullivan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And with a little leeway, I don't have a question, but I'd like to just give an explanation since she raised the question of our heads in the clouds. I think that was a euphemism for something else, but a couple things. Number one, this had been funded out of the Health and Human Services Department, and as they tried to find cuts, they had to look first at what is our core mission, which is the health of the population, inoculations, health advice, that sort of stuff. So it was probably misplaced to be in that department. So when they had to find savings in their budget, it came out. But we totally support putting it back in, but we got to find the right place to do it. It might be the municipal attorney's office. And the other thing to keep in mind is, you're right, there are savings, but unfortunately all those savings go to the state of Alaska because we don't incarcerate people. So, the state gets the savings, but we get the cost. So one of our strategies is going forward in our legislative package, we're going to be asking the state for greater support because, again, they are seeing the direct benefit in their budgets that we don't see. So you make a good point, but, we want to work with the state and see if we can help them recognize the benefit they're receiving because of our investment in youth court. So we'll be working on that.
So you're saying that the municipality is going to be lobbying for state funding for youth court?
Absolutely.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
They've got lots of money.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Assembly, Mr. Mayor, Stu Grenier, Grenier. I'm on the Northeast Community Council, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the People Mover and the Valley Mover interface. I do use the Valley Mover on occasion, and living in Muldoon, I don't get to use it much because it only stops at the dump by Highland Drive and downtown, and it really makes it inconvenient. And after talking with the employees, in other words, the bus drivers, they said that they're trying to have a route to the university, so you could basically go from Pittman Road to the university with stops in Eagle River and Peters Creek and whatnot if it's requested. I don't know where that is on that, but it seems like the budgeting process could be used in such a way to facilitate an incorporation between the two bus routes, which would help get Muldoon some of its bus service back to Eagle River, which I did use quite a bit. And I don't understand quite all the roadblocks. Someone suggested it has to do with the People Mover being unionized and the Valley Mover not being unionized. But if we could get a bullet route from Muldoon to the university that's coming from Pittman Road, that would probably be something we might be able to save some money on the People Mover from. And so I think if there could be some leadership on these problems, it would help get bus service back to Eagle River from East Anchorage, and maybe we could bag a really quick service out to the university because the Valley Mover people want to go there. I don't know where it stands. I know that our council passed a resolution requesting that someone try to get something moving there because it's pretty frustrating getting dumped at the dump. Also, real quick, since I know we don't get to testify twice, Muldoon Park Strip Town Square effort is going. I hope you guys got a flyer that was somebody gave to you. And also, I actually came to testify on the liquor store on Northern Lights, and that got pulled. But once again, folks, we need to get the red stripe applied to the public inebriates. People won't be upset about liquor stores being put in their neighborhoods if you guys take some leadership, kind of like Mike Gutierrez did. And if you have to put it on the ballot, I'm sure. If you say, folks, should red stripes be applied to public inebriates, just like people who drive intoxicated, you're going to get 70% again. And then those guys, they really want to be helped. I actually talked to them. There's not as many around as there used to be.
Let me interrupt you. I've got questions for you on the topic.
Okay.
Ms. Osiander?
I'm on the Valley Mover topic. I absolutely endorse that resolution. I've been having conversations with Mr. Wilbur the Valley Mover has some specific restrictions because of the funding they get and the grants. I've also been trying to investigate vans on fixed routes. So maybe what we should do is get everybody in the same room to talk a little bit more about that, but I'm definitely on board on that one. So we'll talk more, Stu. Thanks.
Mr. Honeman.
Stu, can you just real briefly, are you saying the red stripe, you're asking to do the red stripe requirement for people who appear inebriated in public, or I wasn't quite clear?
Well, we've actually talked about this in detail with Harry at the Northeast Community Council and Paul and the police officers. Basically, it's real frustrating. We all know how the red stripe works with with people who drive intoxicated. Legally, from Juneau, it could be applied to public inebriates. It's just a matter of political will. In other words, if someone gets cited however many times for public inebriation, they could get a red stripe just like the people who drive around and drunk and hurt people. The idea is our parks are highly valued, and it's just a matter of political will to help those people out. And if you actually talk to them, which I have some in my neck of the woods, they want help. They like the idea. If it was,
I hate to insert myself here, Mr. Honeman, but we got a lot of people to testify on the subject on the floor.
I was looking for a synopsis, but okay, we'll talk offline. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, my name is Michelle Ganoza, G-A-N-O-Z-A, and I'm here to testify on behalf of those who use People Mover, including myself. Reducing the frequency of buses running in the mornings and evenings when most people are going to work and school will significantly impact those who rely on People Mover to get them there. Removing weekend routes would eliminate many people who use the time during the weekends to run errands when they work during the week. Many students also already struggle paying for higher tuition on top of affording off-campus housing, presenting more difficult challenges by depleting reliable and critical resources. I do what I can to practice sustainability, such as taking public transportation, and share my responsibility to reduce my carbon footprint. As a student, I am earning my master's degree in teaching to become a secondary science teacher. Right now, I'm interning full-time at Begich 5 days a week. I depend on People Mover to take me there. Please support public transportation by reconsidering or at least strategically revising the bus schedule. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mr. Chobal, C-H-A-O-B-A-L. I'm a 35-year resident of Alaska. I'm here to speak about Youth Court. It sounds like the show of force has really made a difference, the activism of people stepping up for things they care about. But I am an attorney in Anchorage. My daughter is part of Youth Court. One of the fantastic things that I discovered when she did Youth Court is it's a really low fee, $25, to be part of it. So really the doors are open for a lot of people to be part of it, to put their children in it, and there's summertime programs. I was also an instructor in the Youth Court program for a course, and one of the things that struck me about my students, I did South High School, is it's really an opportunity for kids to learn about the political system that we live in. It's a civics lesson as much as it is anything else. Finally, I've also had clients that have gone through the youth court program, and I've heard from their parents about the incredible transformation they've seen from their kids once they've gone through the program. I think we've talked about a lot of things. The thing I'd like to mention is that, what I've seen in 35 years growing up, living my entire life in Alaska, is Anchorage is changing drastically. There's really two Anchorages. It's like there's two Americas. There's an Anchorage of people that have things and are doing all right. And then there's an Anchorage of people that live in vast tenements, apartment complexes, that are caught in a cycle of their children or their spouses or themselves or family members in and out of jail. And once you're in that vicious cycle, we see it all the time as criminal defense attorneys, that we see the same people, their related family members, and it becomes it's a morass. And poverty is deeply a part of it. Substance, alcohol abuse is deeply a part of it. These services aren't there for people. I think it's very instructive that the youth court is on the block, as well as a place like we were speaking about, the Thomas House earlier. These are we can talk about savings delivered back to people in checks of $300-400, but the cost to the community, as Ms. Gray-Jackson mentioned, is tremendous. We have to invest in these things, because otherwise what we're doing is saying there's this other half of Anchorage and they're off on their own, and you know what, my taxpayer, we don't want to support them, and we'll let things be whatever they may be, and the other half of Anchorage that's doing just great, well, we'll give you back a tax rebate. The point is that we all live in the same community and we affect one another. And so this program is incredibly important to me. I don't come before the Assembly to testify very often. And I'm glad to hear that there's been some change, that we can see the political calculus here. But I think also let's keep our eye on, do we want two Anchorages, like two Americas, or do we want just one? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Trini has a question.
Yes, sir. Along with you, our children went through youth court, served as attorneys, and it's just wonderful for how the kids turn out. Not just the ones that go through it because they have to, but the ones that volunteer in this program. It's a great self-confidence builder.
Yes.
So I intend to do what I can to get this program funded. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Evening. My name is Lee Post. That's Leepost. And I am a juvenile probation supervisor for the Anchorage office of the Division of Juvenile Justice. I've been working with juvenile justice and child protection issues for the state of Alaska for the last 13 years. I also was a mentor for the AXO program, you heard from Ms. Gaines earlier. That's run out of the NAACP. I'm here today to talk about the kids that aren't here today, the defendants, the kids who've been charged with juvenile crimes, and the kids that are under the charge of juvenile probation. The Anchorage Youth Court is a vital and necessary partner in the Division's efforts to divert Anchorage's youth from the court system. The Anchorage Youth Court works with hundreds of Anchorage youth on the cusp of becoming involved with the justice system and gives them a path to take responsibility for their actions and avoid the long-term consequences of possibly being involved in the court process. To give you a picture of the scope of the impact of the municipality's funds, in fiscal year 2011, the Anchorage Juvenile Probation Office handled approximately 1,800 criminal referrals involving 1,100 juveniles, which represents approximately 51% of all referred juveniles in the state. Of those referrals, 255 youth, nearly 20% of all delinquent youth in Anchorage, were referred to the Anchorage Youth Court for sentencing by their peers, where they were required to do essays, community work service, classes, and pay restitution to their victims. Once sentenced, they had weekly check-ins with sentencing coordinators employed by Volunteers of America to track their progress. Approximately 75% of these youth are successful each year, and they're allowed to avoid the formal court process and the formal consequences for their juvenile mistakes. Mistakes that can lead to long-term, unanticipated consequences for the youth's high school career, their college plans, their military career, and employment opportunities. Just this last week, I got a series of panicked phone calls from a mother and a 21-year-old aspiring law student who would have had to disclose a conviction of shoplifting as part of her college application, if not for the opportunity to complete Anchorage Youth Court when she was 14 years old. Work with the Anchorage Youth Court and Volunteers of America's sentencing coordinator increases the efficiency and oversight beyond what the Division of Juvenile Justice is able to do with the 5 diversion officers we have in Anchorage. Youth who aren't successful are referred back to juvenile probation for additional monitoring and possibly additional consequences. This allows the juvenile probation officers to focus the attention on the youth that are the greatest risk to reoffend. The program also offers a pre-court program for 9 to 12-year-olds who are the highest risk to reoffend based on their age and are often involved in gateway offenses like thefts and vandalisms that pull them further into the juvenile justice system and place a burden on their municipality. In conclusion, I will cite a 2010 report by the McDowell Group evaluating Alaska's youth courts. They found the benefits are a more focused, individualized, and age-appropriate process for the defendants, more communication with the defendants' parents and victims, a rich opportunity for education and personal growth by the defendants and youth volunteers, and finally, a chance for a variety of adult community members to play a role in the youth justice and restoration. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the Assembly. Mr. Mayor, my name is Bradley Borden, B-O-U-R-D-O-N. I'm a senior at Grace Christian School, and I've been volunteering for Anchorage Youth Court for almost 3 years now. I'm currently the co-president of Anchorage Youth Court and the co-chair of the board of directors. Before you are the members of the Anchorage Youth Court Bar Association. These volunteers have poured in thousands of hours. And for what? Because we believe and know that we are making a difference in our city. As you already know, this isn't just some program where kids get together for fake court cases. We deal with real people, real cases, individuals who are at their most impressionable. We're able to help kids who have simply made a mistake. Our goal is to rehabilitate the people that come before our courts. We are teaching and showing that not only do their crimes have consequences, but that people care about them. Our organization is small enough that we can treat the defendant as more than just a case number, as a human being. However, we are big enough to impact a great number of juvenile offenders. In the many cases I've been involved with as an attorney and a judge, I've seen that these defendants are lost. They are teenagers with significant potential, not just some criminal. In AYC, peers help guide these young adults through their difficult times. We understand them, we relate to them, we care for them. And in my time in the courtroom, I can see that we are truly getting through to the defendants. Our volunteers help them to see the error of their ways and a path that a life of crime will take them down. This program gives our city's troubled youth a rare second chance. Sure, they made a mistake, but with AYC, these teens can now go on to college and become productive members of society without a conviction hanging over their head. Anchorage Youth Court benefits its volunteers just as much as it does its defendants. Not only does it give my colleagues and I the opportunity to give back to a community that has already given us so much, but AYC also matures its members. Confidence builds, and the once young, shy boys and girls stand before the court as critical thinkers and poised professional young adults. I know that we are here regarding the budget cuts. In the 17 years that Youth Court has received municipal funds, we have not asked for an increase, but have remained grateful for your generosity. And we also greatly appreciate your advocacy this year, especially when Youth Court has faced its loss of its grant. We realize that times are getting tougher, and as the program has expanded to greater serve the youth of Anchorage, AYC volunteers have actively fundraised to cover additional costs rather than ask for a grant increase. Defendants are even ordered to community work service to beautify and better our town. However, our current grant is vital to the life of Anchorage Youth Court. And quite frankly, we have all worked too long and too hard to see a rare program like this fade into non-existence.
Mr. Birch has a question for you.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank you for your service and for being here this evening. And one of the questions I had earlier related to the not only type of crimes, but to what extent the victims are either satisfied with the outcome or the process. And I was just wondering if you could speak to that for a minute.
Yes, sir. Well, the majority of our cases are shoplifting cases and misconduct involving controlled substance, so mainly marijuana possession. But the greatest amount is shoplifting. And these stores see what we're doing. They see that we are rehabilitating defendants, keeping them from shoplifting in the future. So they are very grateful for this. They're seeing that, they're not having these kids going back 6 months later and stealing from them once again. And so they are very appreciative.
Great. Well, good work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Trombley.
My question for you is, what is the maximum level of crime that you guys deal with?
We can take minor felony crimes, which for purposes of Anchorage Youth Court may be downgraded. So the lowest class of felony theft or misconduct involving a controlled substance when the marijuana is within a school zone. And that's generally the highest level of felony that we can take, and it's downgraded to a misdemeanor for our court proceedings.
That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. There are no other questions.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Evening, ladies and gentlemen, Assembly, Mr. Mayor. Glenn Cradaville, Volunteers of America, KRATOCHVIL. And if I can start by just answering a couple of those questions from Mr. Trombley and Mr. Birch. There is a defendant or a victim satisfaction survey that's conducted by victims of youth court participants, and that satisfaction rate is over 90%. The other question, as far as the most serious cases that are handled, we've been talking a lot about Anchorage Youth Court tonight rather than specifically the Making a Difference programs as they show up on the budget. One of those programs is also a Tier 2 program, which is handled by the sentencing coordinators at Volunteers of America. So in this bundle of money that we're talking about, we are also talking about some minor assault cases. There are burglary cases that get assigned. If there's no prior criminal history, we've got criminal mischief, criminal trespass. There are some forgery cases, theft, vehicle, a lot of different cases that aren't only shoplifting. Granted, that's a much smaller percentage than the cases that are the majority of what youth court deals with, but you're getting a lot more than just shoplifting for that 205 that we're asking for. As many of you are aware, the Making a Difference Partnership was created in 1995 to address a remarkable spike in youth crime in Anchorage. It was the first program of its kind to specifically target the reduction of recidivism among low-risk, first-time juvenile offenders in Anchorage. These programs are effective.
Could we have you pull the microphone closer?
Yes, sir. How's that? Great. Our relationship with youth court. After the Anchorage Youth Court has completed a juvenile's hearing, youth are then referred to sentencing coordinators at Volunteers of America, who hold young people accountable and make sure that they complete their sentences. Basically, we're the people behind the youth court, making sure that all those sentences and community service hours that get ordered actually get completed. We also have victim impact panel and thinking patterns, critical thinking classes that defendants are participating in. In some cases, there's actual victim offender mediations where we put people in the same room with the people that they've harmed to see if they can work out some kind of restitution agreement or figure out some way to make right the harm that was done to the Anchorage resident. The Making a Difference programs set these young offenders on the right track, largely due to the close collaboration between Anchorage Youth Court, Volunteers of America, and the State of Alaska's Division of Juvenile Justice. Without these programs, youthful offenders in Anchorage would end up with more police contact, higher truancy and delinquency, and would be less engaged in their community. The economic loss caused by increased shoplifting and property damage, coupled with the additional expenses that would be incurred by Anchorage Police Department, outweighs the $205,000 the programs received in 2012. Please keep these important youth programs in the budget for 2013, even if that involves moving them to a different department. We would certainly support that, and we do appreciate your continued support.
Ms. Gray-Jackson has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I don't have a question. I'm happy to see everybody in this audience who are here to talk about the budget, and especially all the youth with Anchorage Youth Court. But I want to thank you for taking it a step further than the youth court and mentioning the Making a Difference program, because frankly, I was staff to the Assembly when the program was established by Senator Begich and Mr. Chaney, and I was happy to see it happen then, and I'll do everything I can to make sure it stays around for a long, long time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We appreciate that.
Good evening. Good. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Deanna St. Louis, St. Louis, ST period, L-O-U-I-S, and my first name is Deanna, D-E-A-N-N-A. I am a user of Anchor Rides, and I'm quite concerned about the effects of these proposed cuts that are being done in the mayor's proposed plan that does all the cutting to these services. I've heard tonight where even the mayor said that we were focusing as a community on health, and yet all these cuts would severely impact the health of the people that use Anchor Rides in some way or another. Either you would have dialysis patients not being able to get to dialysis, you would have dialysis centers not being able to handle the amount of dialysis patients in that amount of time. You would have diabetics not being able to potentially get their prescriptions on Sunday when they may have ran out of insulin. This severely impacts the health of the Anchor Rides community. Plus, like I said, it also would, say for instance, even people that are suffering from depression, that seek guidance in going to church on Sunday. That wouldn't even be there for them. That really does impact the entire health of this community for people that ride Anchor Rides. And I would also like to include the city bus in there, because I do know many people that are not quite severely disabled enough to qualify for Anchor Rides still suffer from some form of disability, and they may be using the city transportation.
Okay. Thank you. There are no questions, but I would, Mr. Mayor, I believe she's addressing the A budget. Would you like to do some clarification in what's in the B budget?
Well, of course, it's the Assembly's decision on which budget you approve, but we're recommending the B budget, which restores all the funding to the Transit Department for both People Mover and Anchor Rides.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I misread. I don't want the budget to include these cuts. I had misread. I'm sorry. Actually, I didn't know that. Sorry.
But I can understand why it'd be a little confusing, because we did put out two different budgets, but I think the Assembly in their wisdom will probably concur with your sentiments.
Okay.
I didn't want you going home worried about this.
Well, it's very true. I mean, this is not just something that people do as, this is a very necessary thing for our community and for the people that use it. This is a health issue. This is their livelihood. This is going to college if they're capable of doing it. This is, going to the grocery store and getting the healthy groceries that they might need because they're diabetic on Sundays.
We are going to take care of you. Mr. Trainee has a question.
I'm just that even the mayor recognizes that the A budget is not workable. That's the reason he's asked us to pass the B budget. So I've got to give the mayor credit because the B budget does not get rid of any cuts to transportation at all, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Josephine Webb, W-E-B-B. I also got the proposed budget thing of Anchor Rides, and I was too confused. And now I was going to speak in outrage, but now I guess I'm just going to say thank you, Mr. Mayor, for clarifying that, because I use Anchor Rides, and it's a vital source for me to get to school. I go to night classes, and a lot of us use Anchor Rides and People Movers. I have used both, and I'm appreciative that we do have this service, and whatever we can do to keep it running would be grateful to me, and to a lot of us that use it. We would be very grateful if we can just keep it going. Thank you.
Thank you. I want you to know we enjoy thank yous much more than outrage, so thank you.
Sorry. But now that he clarified it, I don't have to be outraged.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm here to support a program that's also preventative in nature. It is a good investment, a sound investment for the city. It leverages funds with two other organizations, and I think it's good for the health of the community. And that's the Campfire Centers program. And it's slated for a $30,000 cut so far in the budget. And so this program's been an important asset for children at Denali Montessori Elementary School. For years, the children in the program met in my wife's classroom where she observed them firsthand. And I got to too on numerous occasions when I was shoehorned into volunteering. So they met there at the end of the day. They received a nutritious meal from Lunchbox. They shared stories from their day with staff, and they headed down the street to the Lutheran Church for the remainder of their day. These students develop strong, trusting relationships with the staff. They get advice about friendships, help with their homework, exercise, and encouragement to do right and do their best in school. This year, as school counselor for both Denali Fairview Elementary School, my wife has seen the same positive dynamics between students and the top-notch staff at the Fairview Campfire program. She knows students and staff from the Fairview neighborhood served by the program. Almost all of these families work at least one job, but would be hard-pressed to pay for after-school care. During this time when the program has had to wait list referrals, these children have had to be home alone, or adults in the family have been unable to work. Parents struggle with these choices, knowing that they might have to put their child at risk, or their housing or meals or other things at risk without this source of after-school care. The Campfire program is an example, a great example of a private, government, and faith-based partnership. It's the trifecta. There's 3 different groups doing this. And that we need to encourage this kind of program and expand it, not cut it. At extremely low cost, the program uses the municipality's modest funding contribution, which has been static at $125,000 for many years, and it makes use of spaces in churches and schools that would otherwise be unused, and pays for trained quality staff. This makes children safe. They have great adult role models. They learn, they have fun, and are supported in their friendships with one another. We should be doing this all over town. And again, this is sound investment for the health of the community. Thank you.
Could I get your name, please?
I'm sorry. Joe Banta, B as in boy, A-N-T-A.
Thank you. Mr. Horniman has a question.
Mr. Bennett, thanks again for coming in and giving good, very much well-prepared remarks. I know that as a young father myself, I used the both before and after day campfire programs at Scenic Park, and very good program, and of course paid my way through there, but I know the program itself offers scholarships for folks that can't and things like that, so it's a great organization, and you're right, $30,000 is really a minor part of the overall scheme of thing and budget, but it's a great program. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Doug White, and I come here tonight. My mission is a little bit changed due to Mayor Sullivan's clarification. I came in, I guess I could say now, in support of Plan B in terms of the budget, in terms of public transportation. Due to, I think the support of public transportation is very important, considering, especially considering the problems that this nation, the entire world, is going to have to face in terms of global warming. I have a science background. I have a master's in both chemical physics and mathematical physics, and I'm quite concerned about the problems that global warming is going to cause. And I don't think that most of us here, including myself, has really faced the reality of the changes that are going to have to take place. And I think the support of public transportation is going to be extremely important in terms of changes that are going to have to take place due to these problems. Thank you, and thank you for your clarification of the budget.
Thank you. We have no questions. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Rachel Rademacher. Rademacher spelled R-A-D-E-M-A-K-E-R. I'm here to speak about the budget for People Mover. I heard that you guys I found out today that from an associate at my workplace that you guys were considering cutting the early hours for, I have a mental disability which I've been struggling with for quite some time now, and I was wondering possibly if you guys were going to cut the early morning hours on some of the routes, and I was concerned about that because I get around through People Mover and I'm planning on going back to school, but if you guys cut the early morning hours, I won't be able to go to class and go to work at the same time. So my request was that you guys would not cut the early morning hours on some of the routes so that I could be able to go to class and school, and also for other people as well who are struggling. I help people who struggle with mental disability or just people who are struggling whatsoever, and their main concern is that they to be able to go back to school or whatever it is that they put their hope in. So,
as the mayor just explained, in his B budget, there is no cuts.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the Anchorage Assembly and Mayor Dan Sullivan. My name is Ted Madsen, T-E-D-M-A-D-S-E-N, and I am here tonight to speak to the benefits of the Anchorage Youth Court. I should note at the outset that in my current job, I serve as a legislative aide to Representative Max Gruenberg. However, I am here tonight to speak on my own behalf. I joined the Anchorage Youth Court in the winter of 2002. I received the Golden Gavel Award for attaining the highest score on the Anchorage Youth Court bar exam for my class. I was tested on knowledge of the law and legal proceedings. Assemblyman training, I served as a youth lawyer with your daughter. And Assemblywoman Osiander, I served on the board of directors with you when you first started running for the position that you now hold. You both know firsthand the benefits of this organization, and I would like to thank you for your continued support of it. In this very chamber, I conducted meetings of the Anchorage Youth Court Bar Association as its president. As president, I reviewed hundreds of cases that came before Anchorage Youth Court to make sure that they were appropriate for our members to handle. I was also elected to serve as co-chair of the Anchorage Youth Court Board of Directors, and I attribute much of my success in life to the skills that I gained through my service with the Anchorage Youth Court. AYC benefits our community and its citizens in numerous ways, from the reduced recidivism of defendants who go through the program to the skills and knowledge that youth members gain from becoming teenage defense attorneys, prosecutors, and judges, not to mention the tens of thousands of volunteer hours those members have served over the years. Indeed, in 2002, Anchorage Youth Court was one of 3 organizations that helped earn Anchorage the honor of being named an All-American City for the 4th time. Anchorage Youth Court plays a valuable, cost-effective role in the justice system for our city and has become a national model of juvenile justice for youth by youth. Eliminating funding or reducing funding for this organization will drastically impact the future of hundreds, if not thousands, of youth, both as members and as defendants, and could very well increase the amount of juvenile crime in our community. Mayor Sullivan has now proposed cuts to the fire department, the police department, and so many other valuable critical services that promote the peace and harmony of our neighborhoods. Do not bow to this administration's continual propositions to threaten the public safety of our community. Do not eliminate or reduce funding for the Anchorage Youth Court. Thank you very much.
Mr. Training.
Thank you very much for your service in Youth Court. And I remember when Mayor Meister and I went down to have Anchorage named All-American City, that was one of the things we used was Youth Court. Whole presentation on it, and we were selected. So thanks for your participation, and we want to make sure Youth Court stays funded. It's a good program, helps the kids, and helps all of society. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Assemblyman.
There are no other questions.
Thank you very much for your time.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Pastor Lisa Smith Fiegel, F as in Frank, I-E-G-E-L. I serve as pastor at Central Lutheran Church at 15th and Cordova. I'm also the chair of the board of AFACT, Anchorage Faith and Action Congregations Together. In case you don't know, AFACT is a group of 14 diverse congregations throughout the city and 1 youth organizing ministry. We are a listening ministry, and we listen to our neighbors, members of our congregations, and we work with elected leaders like yourselves for lasting change. We represent thousands of people in 14 congregations. We at AFACT acknowledge the very important community contributions of a number of the valuable programs mentioned here tonight. So we don't want to pit one nonprofit or one program against another. They're all important and deserve our support. However, we as AFACT are here tonight standing with the most vulnerable, children who need safe recreation, and the homeless. I'll speak about children who need safe recreation. We're here tonight to ask you to reinstate the proposed $30,000 cut to the Campfire program. Please don't cut Campfire. We care about children's recreation, and in fact, so does our mayor. At a March 15th, 2009 mayoral candidate forum held at my congregation at Central Lutheran, sponsored by AFACT, then candidate Dan Sullivan said the following in front of the 300 people gathered. Youth recreation is an issue near and dear to my heart. There should be an opportunity every single day to have good, healthy recreation without having to wonder if you have a couple bucks in your pocket. As for funding, he said, quote, Campfire and church programs should be a top priority of city grants. Kids come first, end quote. We could not agree more with Mayor Sullivan, and we could not have said it better ourselves. About 10 years ago, members of Central Lutheran Church, which is located in West Fairview, noticed an increase of children hanging around on our playground. When members of Central Lutheran asked why, the children said there was no safe place to play after school. So Central members opened a free after-school program for children in the neighborhood. We were able to staff it 2 days a week and wanted to do more, but just couldn't. As we got to know these youth, we heard their stories. They drew us a map of the neighborhood and showed us where the prostitutes were and where you could buy drugs. This is what was happening in their parks and on their streets. So in 2006, AFAC leaders at Central worked with the municipality and Camp Fire to enter into the cooperative relationship where Central provides our space for free, Camp Fire provides excellent staffing, and the municipality provides grant funding. We as a congregation are so proud to host a Camp Fire site that provides free after-school care to families who can't afford it. We have seen the difference Camp Fire makes in children's lives. So the mayor is right, don't cut Camp Fire. This cut would directly impact our Camp Fire site. Our families would have been here to ask you themselves, but they're at home with their children where they need to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Horniman?
Pastor, thanks for your commitment to the community and making it a better place for our youth as well. And I think I remember being there and hearing that very comment. So I appreciate you bringing it up, refresh our memories.
Thank you.
That's all the questions. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Kay Gajewski, spelled Gajewski, and I'm also from AFACT. In 2007, AFACT, the leaders, visited 170 families to understand concerns in the community. Many of the concerns were about the homeless. The leaders proceeded to conduct over 20 research meetings with state, municipal, and nonprofit officials. One of the shortcomings which rose again and again was the need for one person to coordinate all efforts to end homelessness in Anchorage. In 2008, AFAC sponsored a public meeting attended by almost 400 people, at which the congregation requested a position of a homeless coordinator in the mayor's office. AFAC was very pleased that Mayor Sullivan established and filled this position, but now it has been eliminated in the proposed 2013 budget. AFAC feels that this is a grave mistake. In his short tenure in this position, Darrell Hess has supported 8 congregations doing emergency housing for families, the Housing First Project, Carlett Manor, and encouraged homeless adults to seek safe shelters by eliminating illegal camps. The community has just begun to reap the benefits of this position. Millions of public monies go into addressing the issue. The position can assure that these resources are used efficiently. Homelessness is one of the most serious problems in Anchorage, affecting not only the homeless, but all of us. It would be tragic to lose the homeless coordinator. Thank you.
Ms. Osiander?
I just want to say something that may be obvious, and that is sometimes you have to cut things that are really good when you don't have enough money. And just the comments that were made, I don't think means that people are not valuing a program or a good. It's just you've got to somehow figure out when you don't have enough money where to cut it. So it's probably didn't even need to say that, but I kept thinking it over the last few speakers, so I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
There are no other questions. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Irene Bortnick, Bortnick. I am a teacher at Denali Montessori, and I came here tonight to speak to 2 worthy programs. The first one, Youth Court, on which 2 of my children served, has been very eloquently spoken about, so I'll leave that one go. I'm here also for Camp Fire. And as both a teacher and being across from Ms. Banter's room for many years, I've seen firsthand the children in my classroom, how they have benefited, and other children in our school. It's amazing to me that year after year, this time of year, we have to come back and beg for this program to be kept on. It does not cost that much money, and it makes a difference in so many lives. As a mother, I can't imagine having to worry for several months about where my children might be going after school. Please stop threatening to cut this very worthy program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Carol Krenzelewski. That's C-A-R-O-L, capital K-R-E-N-S-E-L-E-W-S-K-I. And I'm here to ask you to please support Budget B. Anchor rides and people mover is very important to people in my family, including myself. I'm on a limited budget also. So, and again, many times it's definitely a health issue. So I think that all I want to do is ask you to please be compassionate in your decision.
Thank you for taking the time to say that.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Angela. It's spelled A-N-G-E-L. Last name is K-R-E-N-S-E-L-E-W-S-K-I. I want to say thank you to the police department for helping me in the AIDS. I had a private matter at a assisted living home that wasn't a good situation for me, and I want to say thank you for them. And we need more assisted livings for the people who have handicap issues, and we really need more help with that for people who have disabilities who are handicapped. And we really do need more anchor rides. And I mean, it was a really bad situation where I had to leave, and I really don't have any other place to go except for my mom's. If I didn't have any other place to go, I would have been in jail right now. That's how bad it is. And the house parent got in my face, and she got in my face, and I didn't want to, but I had to push her out of the way, so she pressed charges against me. So now I have to go to jail because of it.
You need anchor rides.
No, but that's the truth.
I know, okay.
There are no questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Maddie Moore, Moore, M-O-O-R-E, and I'm a senior at West Anchorage High School. I've been a member of Anchorage Youth Court for nearly 5 years, and I'm currently hold the position of co-president of Anchorage Youth Court, and I'm co-secretary of the board of directors. You've heard a lot of speakers today talk about the importance of the Making a Difference program and how it truly benefits our community, and I'm speaking here today to give you a youth perspective of the program, the key player in this organization. As an organization, we pride ourselves in making positive impacts in the lives of youth, whether they be coming through the program as members, defendants, or in some cases we have them come through as both. As a member, I've benefited from all that the program has to offer. Coming into the program as a 13-year-old, speaking in front of my peers was uncomfortable. It was nerve-wracking, but I had older members to guide me through the program, giving words of encouragement and advice, and they taught me how to become a leader, and now I am a leader, giving advice to other people, giving words of encouragement to other peers in the program. And not only do I apply the public speaking skills that I've learned through the program to a courtroom setting, but I've done multiple community presentations, school presentations. I've conducted board meetings and done forms of media coverage. And recently I have had the pleasure of speaking to about 70 Clark students at Clark Middle School, where they have a law studies class. And this class teaches this diverse group of youth about civics, but it also allows them to take the bar exam and be admitted into the Bar Association. And our program gives them a volunteer opportunity and a chance to do something outside of school, a chance to do something with their free time. We are providing youth with an outlet to learn, make friends from all around the community. I have friends in all different high schools throughout Anchorage, and develop skills that can be applied to any career path. Also, this summer, I ran into a former defendant that I had been on a case with as a defense attorney, and the young man recognized me and approached me, eager to talk about his experiences and what he's learned from the program. And since his case about a year ago, he has graduated high school and now has a full-time job as a welder, a job that he obtained as part of his community service hours through Anchorage Youth Court. And it's stories like these that make our program so effective. We give unique opportunities to youth in our community to become open-minded and understanding individuals, to become productive in our community, and pass on their experiences and knowledge to other youth in the community. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Good evening.
Good evening, citizens and Chamber of Assembly. My name is Joseph Nakoma Brooks. That's B-R-O-O-K-S. I'm speaking in regards to Plan B for your People Mover proposition. I just wanted to put out there that, you know, you're referring to taxing the people and returning the money. You know, you provide a service to the municipality and each of its persons, you know, for services rendered. So taxing the people, isn't that over the table to present itself to render your services? So I strongly support that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Rossetti, B-A-R-B-A-R-A-R-O-S-E-T-T-I, and I'm here on behalf of Campfire. I'm president of the board of directors of that organization, and I wanted to talk to you tonight about the $30,000 cut to Campfire funding. First of all, let me just say thank you. I know you guys don't hear that enough. So to be fair, thank you very much, because I know the municipality has been a supporter of Campfire. However, this year we do have that $30,000 that's been proposed to be removed from the Campfire grant. And to be specific, I like to put a face and to make this specific. To be specific, this $30,000 cut will jeopardize program hours and services at Fairview and Tyson elementary schools, leaving more than 65 youth unsupervised and without a safe after-school environment. Pastor Lisa Fiegel spoke to that earlier. The cut will also jeopardize fee assistance for youth and families in Anchorage and Eagle River to attend Campfire's licensed child care programs. That means more than 36 youth will no longer be able to attend Campfire's programs, the before and after school programs, and Joe Banta spoke to that earlier as well. Campfire already raises funds from a variety of private individuals and corporate sources, and they help to fund these programs. The municipality funds about 20% of the actual costs that allows, and that funding allows us to leverage other funds as well. The $30,000 reduction will affect more than the 101 kids that I've mentioned. I have to think about what kind of a community we want and what kind of opportunities for success we want all of the children in our community to have. I want to live in a community where children can learn and grow, and parents can be assured their kids have a safe place to do so. One of the common threads among many of the folks giving testimony tonight has been around social interaction, food, safety, shelter, and the ability to learn. These are very basic human needs. And let me tell you, I'm a homeowner in the municipality of Anchorage. I want to thank you for your earlier vote. I don't want my property tax money back. I want it used to make Anchorage a better place to live. So in closing, please restore the $30,000 from to the municipal grant to fund these programs.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Joe Darnell, D-A-R-N-E-L-L. I serve with Ms. Rossetti on the Campfire Board. I have for about 6-7 years, presently the secretary. I think she very eloquently put forth the direct impact this will have, could have on the programs that Campfire offers. Like Assemblyman Honeman, I had a child who went through the before and after school program, and I think like with Assemblyman Honeman, I could afford that program, and it's a marvelous program. But there's a lot of people in this community who unfortunately cannot afford that program. And the funding that this particular grant helps make possible additional people who would otherwise not be able to participate in this program, to provide a place for their children to be either before or after school. It is, we've heard from Lutheran Church the difficulties that they are seeing with kids with no places to go. It is absolutely critical that we have a place for these kids to go. This program does a lot towards making that, achieving that goal. We should be even doing more. So I hope that you will find a way to provide for the funding that's been right now proposed to be cut. Being a member of the board of Campfire, we're always out looking and drumming money from all sorts of sources that we can find. This money is important to being able to help leverage, but it's also a commitment, I think, a statement by the community as well, that it too supports providing a place for these kids to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Crystal. That's Chrystel. That's Bankhead. Bankhead and hyphenated Scott. I'm here to just to be supportive with everyone else about the social programs that are being cut and the learning programs that will be affecting our children. Most importantly, I think our kids are already affected by so many other things that's going on in our environment, with the disabilities and coming from different all sources or wherever for home life or whatever, and to cut these additional programs, even with the police force and, that's there, having a safety for our kids, and some of the other child care programs, and even the library, that provides learning and reading for literacy for our children. I think if you could do anything you can to kind of keep these programs operating, we could definitely use it. I don't know, I thought there was something mentioned about the bus service that would be cut. If you can confirm that or not. I think people movers, there was another speaker and you said that there was no funds cutting for the people mover?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. I just want to, good, thank you very much, just to know that, because I am a people mover, let's just say, someone that rides a people mover or a customer, I should say, and that's the source of transportation for us. I also want to mention the library. There's cutbacks on the library, and I am a big supporter of the library, and my child and I so much need the library for learning. We're homeschoolers, and a lot of our sources have come, even some of our books come from the library. So it really helps in continuing our learning due to we're not in the public school. And Alaska is the biggest homeschool network here, and a lot of our homeschoolers do need the library. So if you could please do what you can for the library to make sure those hours are not cut and the funding is not cut. This is what helps our children with literacy and reading. And I think we just don't want to take that away. We have a large percentage of illiterate people, even adults, that cannot read. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Trombley.
I'd just like to let you know that in the mayor's S-version add-back ends, looking at restoring library services to the same levels of 2012. So I wasn't sure if you were aware of that, but that's also been, obviously if this body chooses to keep it there, we'll have that discussion, but just so you know, that is proposed to maintain the library hours.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm also here to testify in support of the full restoration of funding to the Making a Difference program. My name is Roderick Binnick. It's a B-I-N-E-K. I'm a lifelong Alaskan who was born and raised here in Anchorage, and for the last 8.5 years, I've been the sentencing coordinator with Volunteers of America that works under the Making a Difference partnership with Anchorage Youth Court. After juvenile defendants are sentenced by the Anchorage Youth Court, I then work with the defendants and their families to provide case management services and supervision, assign community service sites, verify completion of sanctions, collect restitution, maintain databases, and provide documentation of the state when cases are completed. As a result, my focus is primarily on the defendants who go through the program and their victims. The purpose of this program is to reduce juvenile crime in Anchorage by intervening before youth develop a pattern of criminal behavior by holding first-time offenders accountable for their actions. This benefits the community in a number of ways. First of all, by holding first-time offenders accountable, you reduce the chances of their committing additional offenses, thereby reducing overall crime in the community. Through apology letters and restitution paid to victims, we aid the community in recovering from the effects of crime. And by completing community service hours, over 4,700 of which were completed in 2011, the defendants provide a positive effect on the community as a whole. The benefits of this program lie not only in how the defendants pay back the community and their victims, but also in the reduction of future crimes in the municipality. This is an invaluable asset to the community and well worth the funds necessary to maintain the program. I am asking for restoration of the full amount of funding due to the benefits this program provides. Because this funding pays the salaries of sentencing coordinators involved in the program, any reduction in funding will drastically reduce the amount of supervision defendants receive and will result in a decrease in the number of them who complete their sanctions and gain a benefit from the program. In other words, the community is safer with a Making a Difference program in place, funded at its current level. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no questions. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Tristan Radcliffe, Tristan, capital Radcliffe. I'm just going to say right now, just really quick, I'm not the one to stand up front, so right now I'm really nervous, but that's not what we're going to talk about. For me, I take the People Mover, and I saw that you guys were gonna reduce the People Mover, so I'm one that does that, and that's Plan B for planning. So I would not like if you guys would do the early morning. I used to take the bus from my mom's work to my school before my bus system was set up, but and another thing is the anchor rides. I don't take the anchor rides, but a friend from my church does on the weekend. So if you guys eliminate that, I don't see how she's going to get there on the weekend to our church. And so I would not like if you guys did that, because, you know, people depend on the anchor rides. So if you do that, that's also, you know, there'd be a lot of, what am I going to do on the weekend or the weekday? So, and a lot of disabilities out there, so yeah, that's on that. For the Route 60 that I normally take to the library and to the library and different stuff, I would, you know, I do the library and I also go elsewhere, so, and I normally don't do it in the morning, I just come here in the afternoon sometimes, but people also, you know, depend on it sometimes in the morning, so that's my thought on that. And for the Eagle River, I can see how that people need to have the Route 102 for the People Mover, and it's not like we're all gonna move all the way to Anchorage and people like living where they want to be, but for the Route 102 I would just, you know, not do the thing for the
Okay, thank you. Mr. Horniman has a question.
Trista, I just want to say you did pretty good. I know you're nervous and everything. You read through it pretty good. It takes a second to recatch him up there. Thanks for not only giving us information on how you use our services, but also for looking out for others who may not be able to make it tonight. So
Yes.
thanks for bringing it to our attention, and just know that we're trying to do our best with what monies we have available to spend on services. So, and the Plan B budget, if that or some amendment thereof, looks like we restore the services in whole, so not to worry too much about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Richard Bronigan. Here we are at our annual exercise of cruel disregard, where we have to do like Solomon, cut the baby up in little pieces and see who gets what. Budgets are formed with fungible dollars. They can go anywhere. We got a contest going on between fire and police. They each want it all. The fire department probably has more lag time per person than the police department. How about we propose we cut a little bit more from the fire department than we do the police department? Because the police department has a lot more contact with the public and does a lot more for the public than the fire department does on a day-to-day basis. Is that cruel enough disregard for one group over another? I guess maybe not, but we've got Budget A and Budget B. I wish there would be a Budget C or D, because B's no good. You're taking all the money that you're supposed to have given back to us. A would be better. Like my mom said, you take a Band-Aid off slow, it kind of hurts for a long time. But you rip it off, it kind of doesn't hurt so bad for very long. I think we need to have a budget where we kind of rip it off and let's get it over with and get caught up on the outrageous labor costs that we have. Thank you. That cause all of this. It's not inflation. Inflation's been, it's just strictly give away labor costs. And all the groups that have been up here are feeling the effects of it because we can't afford everything. It's just the honest truth. We can't afford everything, like was mentioned earlier. And adults have to decide what's most important. Let's do what's most important. Now, if we've got something left over, maybe we can do some fun or useful things for certain people. How about in a Budget C, we do some new things like, how about slowing down purchases of equipment? We got a 5-year program to replace computers. I'm not sure the interval for vehicles. It's probably similar, maybe 7 years. Can we extend that for a year, for a little while, and maybe slow down some of the big expenses that we have there, just for stuff? Do we really need to do it every 5 years? Would 6 suffice? Like computers in schools, that sort of thing. When we retire a bus, it seems like somebody else buys it and then they run a bus service with it. So maybe the buses aren't totally worn out when we get rid of them. Maybe we could get one more year out of them. That's kind of what I'm trying to suggest there. And really, is the people mover being cut? Honest to God, I didn't know about that. So, no, I'm not here to ask about that. I got it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Paul, how come you didn't ask for that map that they got with all the places where the drugs and the prostitutes? You guys, they could use it.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm Barb Dubovich. That's D-U-B-O-V-I-C-H. And I am the CEO of Campfire, and I thank you for being with us this evening and allowing us to be with you. So, first, obviously, I want to speak to the Campfire cuts, but first, I really do applaud any efforts to restore all of the funding to AYC. As someone who's been in the education and youth development field for all of my professional career, over 30 years, I can tell you there's research that backs up any peer-to-peer monitoring that's done, such as what's done at Anchorage Youth Court, is far more beneficial than anything when we get kids involved into the juvenile justice in terms of really turning them around. So that's a really high priority, just speaking globally to youth and our youth in our community. I did want to note just a couple of things with the funding that comes into Campfire. I know that this became a bit of an education process, even through people directly involved with Campfire. The grant that we have received in the past is $125,000, 95 of which comes directly from the Mayor's Community Grant Program, which we submit to and apply to annually. So it's based on approval through that process. My understanding is the $30,000 that's being cut comes from the Parks and Rec Department, so those two buckets came together to provide us with a grant. The dollars come to us directly. $75,000 goes into the Central Lutheran Church program that we offer at that location. $30,000 goes into helping us offset costs for the operation of the morning program at Tyson Elementary in Mountain View, and $20,000 then goes to help pay for scholarships all across the municipality, both Anchorage and Eagle River, for families accessing our before and after school program that was referred to earlier, has a fee base to it. So those are low-income families. I did want to note the center budget that those dollars come into, the $75,000 and the $30,000, make up just under a quarter of what that total budget is. So those are not the only dollars we're relying on. We actually seek out funds from a whole long list of private and corporate donors that bring money to the table. So you're part of the pie, a pretty significant part of the pie for us. The other it does as we go out to access grant programs for at-risk youth in particular. When we're able to say those are dollars coming from our municipality, those are leverage dollars. Funders pay attention to that. They look at that. They know that there's other resources coming to the table, and that's pretty important to us. So the dollars buy us more than just the direct services that are being provided. And lastly, the scholarship program. The $20,000 that's used really is part of over $200,000 that the agency seeks other funds for. So it's a small amount. Thank you.
Mr. Birch has a question.
I just wanted to thank you for your good work and service. Campfire it's a nonprofit organization, correct?
Mm-hmm.
One of the, and I appreciate your perspective on this, because one of the challenges I always have with taxing people, basically, you have to pay your property tax or we take your house, basically compelling the public to pay a property tax and then turning around and then basically donating that money to a fine-worthy organization such as Campfire. I guess it's something I've always struggled with, and we've periodically tried to keep track of any sort of contributions or any donations that the city has made with taxpayer monies to nonprofits, and many of them, like Youth Court, clearly there's an offset there. Covenant House, with respect to taking care of kids that would otherwise be riding around the back of a cop car all night long. But anyway, do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, the appropriateness of basically compelling the public to pay taxes and then turning around and then donating that?
Yeah, my experience is if the public's not paying it to services such as ours, they're going to be paying it when we're incarcerating youth. We're paying it when kids are riding around in cop cars, when really I think our police have other things to be focused on. There's other ways that we're all going to end up paying for that. And so generally, I think you heard from a couple of the different speakers, these dollars leverage far more dollars. So when you talk about investment, I think it's really true. And we would welcome any questions to the organization about how those dollars are used and being able to have people actually experience and see firsthand the kind of programs that kids are have access to and are involved in. Obviously, I can't speak to every taxpayer in the community. I can certainly speak for myself. I think they're well used.
I guess just to wrap up, I guess it almost seems like it'd be more appropriate to have the nonprofits pursue those dollars directly from the taxpayers rather than kind of coming through the city. But anyway,
we do, sir. We have. I mean, it's been a major effort on the organization's part to increase individual philanthropy through the state. You know, the Rasmussen Foundation has been a strong supporter of Pick, Click, Give in our state. It's really encouraging a lot more individual philanthropy. It's something rather new to us Alaskans to really think about our own dollars going, but we are pursuing those dollars. We do raise those dollars, and we've in the agency actually increased every single year our donor level to help offset costs. So we don't come back to the municipality grant and ask for more. We're seeking out other funds to offset that.
Thank you for your work, and thank you for being here tonight.
Absolutely.
Ms. Osiander.
Thank you for bringing up the clarification on the discretionary grant money. And I wanted to add that to my list of budget questions, how much additional flexibility we'll have in the discretionary grant, if potentially it could make up from some of the 30,000. Because that was actually on my list too, so thank you for that.
Mr. Horniman.
But thanks again for coming and explaining. Just real quickly, do you know roughly how many people are served by Campfire in Anchorage, and then how many of those are receiving scholarships? Do you have that as those facts?
Sure, yeah, we monitor that pretty carefully. In our before and after school program, the licensed child care program, we're seeing over 1,300 children a day. This is a third-year high for us in our enrollment, which is, I think, just a note, a sign of working families in the community. Maybe not more families working, but more families working more than one job. And in our community center program, we're up around 150-ish off the top of my head. So those are some of our highest risk. That's the Mountain View, Fairview area community youth that we're serving. Scholarship-wise, I had her pull the data from the Muni report for me. 80 families through the month of August received scholarships, serving 121 youth. By the end of the year, we expect that to probably go over 150, because that just only took us through August. With school starting late August, September, those scholarships won't show up until this last quarter.
And as you know, I usually give as well to the program, even though
Thank
my
you.
children aren't there anymore. But
Thank you.
Great program. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Sprague-Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here. Doesn't Campfire have an annual breakfast where folks from the community get together and have a nice breakfast, and mostly taxpayers, and then they write a check to help out with the program? Doesn't that happen every year?
Yes, actually, that breakfast, which I'd like
Thank
to
you, Mr.
cordially invite each of you to, is November 8th at 7:30 in the morning at the Denina Center. We would welcome you all being there. We generally get 400 to 500 people who come. We generally raise $100,000 from individuals, totally individuals.
My kid sings at it.
Excuse me?
That's Assemblymember Flynn. I think he just woke up.
Assemblymember Flynn.
I'm listening closely.
All right.
I will talk later.
Okay.
Assemblymember Flynn has been at our breakfast, but truly that's a cordial invitation. We would welcome you to be there, but we seek out funds. Thank you.
Mr. Flynn, did you have a comment you wanted to make we could put on the record?
No, I'll wait till later.
Okay. Ms. Osiander.
I apologize. The focus between the clientele you serve and the Boys and Girls Club programs, same kids, different age? Because it's both Fairview, Mountain View.
Different ages, different children.
All right.
So particularly, for an example, the Tyson Mountain View program that's offered, that Campfire provides at the school, that's one factor that's significant. They're at the school, so when parents drop off, there is no transportation issue.
I understand that. Just
Different kids,
differentiation.
younger ages,
You have the younger, they have the older?
generally.
Okay.
We do serve some older, but they have
You're
that.
elementary age.
Yes,
probably, and
exactly.
Middle school.
Predominantly elementary age, although we do see some middle school youth.
Okay, thank you.
There are no other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and staff and council. First off, I want to tell you guys I appreciate everything you do in service to the community, myself as a citizen, and we appreciate that. My name is Diane Wall, 1N, Diane Wall for the record. I'm a very proud mother of Adam Wall. I'll let him introduce himself, but I just wanted to speak to the support in regards to People Mover and Anchor Ride. Support of Plan B, and I thank you for those services. When we received our letter in the mail this last week from the Anchor Ride office, I was a little bit angst, just because we have been so appreciative of the services that we've been able to have through Anchor Ride to, enrich Adam's life. And I want to let you guys know that they do a bang-up job, the employees there and the workers there, and it's been just a fantastic thing in helping Adam with social skills, just as well as just it's much, much more than transportation issues in his life. It's been a very good thing to help him with his social skills as well. And I'll let Adam introduce and speak to you.
My name is Adam Wall. It's ADAMWALL. I just want you guys to do number B on Anchor Rides, because I ride Anchor Rides every day. I go to the nursing home every Tuesday to help them out with and then I go to my job every 3 days. So I just want you guys to do number B. We can keep money and the workers and stuff like that.
Thank you, Adam. Mr. Horniman.
Adam, thank you very much for telling us your routine, a little bit of your routine and how you take the bus to Anchor Rides to your work, and thank you for volunteering and doing some good for our community as well. So
Yeah.
Thanks for coming and sharing us.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
My name is Julie Zappas, Z-A-P-P-A-S, and would like to address the mayor about Plan B for People Mover. Does it not still include price increase?
There's an accompanying bill that includes a 25% or 25-cent increase in the adult fare from $1.75 to $2.
Okay, I'd like to express my disapproval of that. I read somewhere that the last increase was in 2005, but I think that's incorrect. It was in 2011. There's a price increase that year. And also, I thought that the new fare boxes were recouping or else generating revenue by getting all new cards from UA students, other people that were either, fraudulently using them or void cards. Has that proven to pay for itself with the new fare boxes?
The purpose of the hearing today is for you to tell the Assembly what you would like to have done, and then when they debate it, they'll get all these answers from us.
I'd like to express my disapproval for raising People Mover prices again. I'm glad to see that Plan A was shot down, but raising the price might not seem like very much to some people, but I see a lot of people that cannot afford it. I've been an Anchorage resident since for 38 years, People Mover rider for 6 years. I don't even own a car. And I thought the purpose of the fare boxes was to get rid of people that were using UA cards or other cards that were no longer valid. If you're interested in saving money, I think the fare boxes can save a lot of diesel money, fuel, by taking paper dollars and paper money and Canadian quarters. They have a lot of lag time. The bus running, the doors open in the winter because new fare boxes are not functional. And I also would like to thank you for not cutting funds to the library and Anchorage Youth Court. And I'd like to send my support for Campfire and APED and AFD. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no questions.
Thank you. Good night.
Good evening.
Raise this up a little bit. My name is Craig Mollerstuen, Mollerstuen. Thank you, Chairman Hall, Assembly members, Mr. Mayor. I didn't quite know what I was going to say when I came here tonight. Obviously, you can see I'm wearing this nice blue shirt. You know, it takes some kind of an organization to get a 50-year-old man into a, bright blue T-shirt. But as I was sitting here tonight listening to the assembly, I work for a telecommunications company. I'm a business executive. So I'm very interested in the capitalist agenda, if you will. It's important that we make a profit. I'm a homeowner. I also own a rental property, so I'm a landlord. So I pay property taxes on at least 2 properties, and the business we work for is property tax. And I'm listening to some of the questions about returning money and where we live and the quality of life we have here, and the questions that Assemblymember Birch had about, is it appropriate? And I think it is. I think if we take a strategic look at where we want Anchorage to be, you folks have a very difficult job, and I appreciate that. I'm in your same position. It's budget time of year. We've got a 5-year plan. I know you have a 5-year plan. I hope AYC is in your 5-year plan. I heard the mayor talk about the home it had and the home it will get. I would ask that you find, working with the mayor's staff, the right home for AYC, because it's programs like Campfire, it's programs like AYC that combine to make Anchorage the great place it is, the place we like to live. Yes, we pay quite a bit in taxes, but I think the Assembly does a good job and the right job in finding the place to put that money. I thank you for your support for AYC. I thank you for your continued support for all of the programs, and there are some of us that do appreciate, what you do with our tax dollars. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no questions. Anyone else to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none, this concludes our first public hearing on the municipal budget for 2013. We have no items under special orders, no unfinished agenda. Anyone for audience participation? No. Yeah, I did. Yeah. Anyone? Chair's open to a motion to adjourn. Oh, okay. Please come up.
My understanding was that there was a 2012-100 that included the library.
Those were all combined in one hearing.
Oh, my understanding was that there was a 2012-100.
Could she speak now? Excuse me. Could she speak now?
Yeah. Come up to the microphone. All the budget hearings were combined under one item earlier in the meeting.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, we have time.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. I wanted to speak to the library, was the budget segment that I wanted to speak to. So.
That's fine. Go ahead.
My name is Care Burpee. It's B-U-R-P-E-E. First name is Care, C-A-R-E. The first thing I wanted to say was I want to thank all of you for giving your time. And I wanted to say that in general, I really appreciate how fiscally conservative all of you are. But I disagree with the cuts that are made to the library, and I was very happy to hear what you said earlier, that there are some reconsiderations that are being made to the library funding. I am a homeschooling mother, and my most serious concern with the library budget cuts are that for the 4th year they're being hit, might even be the 5th year, I think, if I'm understanding that correctly. In the Anchorage area, we don't have an exact percentage of homeschoolers. We can't know because we aren't required by law to say exactly whether we homeschool or not. It's estimated that between 14 and 18% of the children in the Anchorage area are homeschooled. So for that 14 to 18% of your constituents, the public library is our school library. So for all of those homeschooled children, when you cut the public library budget by 36%, When you cut 12 library positions, you are essentially cutting your school library by 36%. You are firing 12 school librarians. So I ask you essentially, would you want your child's school library to only be open 3 days a week? Would you want the school librarians who know your children to not be there 3 days a week? They did a My Story campaign at the library where they had stories come in of teens for whom librarians helped to write resumes. They had kids who came in and worked on campaigns where trying to get the librarians to help them write petitions. They needed staff to help them do that. My own children, we've gone in where I looked for things on the computer and I couldn't find them, and we would go and ask the staff, and the staff would say, oh, come over here, it's right there, and they would lead my children to exactly where things were on the shelf. Or my own son really loves space books. And the librarian said to my son, well, it's this Dewey Decimal number. And she said to my 11-year-old boy, do you realize that you can go and look this up in the adult section? The staff did that. He couldn't do that at home on his own. So I'm asking you to take this into consideration when you're making these budget cuts, that it takes real people to do this, that we need the staff there. That as homeschoolers, this is our school library system.
Thank you. Mr. Horniman.
The cuts.
Ms. Burpee, thanks for bringing up the homeschool program numbers. I'm not, that 14 to 18%, I'd like to get a little idea around that, too. It sounds like, there's 50,000 or roughly students, so 10% would be, 5,000, so doubling, almost half, and we're getting more, 77,000, 8,000 students, I suppose. But I believe, does Budget B not restore library services back to as they were currently to in 2012? So you might want to support Budget B or some adopted amended form of thereof. So not Budget A, but Budget B.
Well, I know the other thing, too, that the library is asking for is once they close the Diamond branch, for homeschoolers, there is no branch between Girdwood and Diamond at all. So, something to think about.
Thank you. Anyone else under audience participation?
My name is Aspen McKimmy. That's ASPEN-MCKIMMY, and I'm also here for the library. I'd just like to share some experiences I've had, some things, the reasons why I consider the library important is that if you go into any of the libraries here, you look over at the computers, they're not just used by homeschoolers. A lot of high school students who don't have internet access at home will come and do research on the computers. So it's not just the 14 to 18% of homeschoolers. There's a considerable number of high schoolers who also use the library services. I've personally used the library. I've had to write several research papers and found the librarians there very helpful. Also, I work at a small local business in Eagle River, and my boss's daughter during the summer was pretty much, she had to stay at the business. She's a single mother, and I was able to take her to the library to get her out of the business, which isn't very interesting for a 10-year-old girl. And rather than sitting around and doing nothing, I got her to a place where I could show her books and a whole new world, which I really love and enjoy. One of the problems with the current schedule is the library is closed on Sunday, which for a lot of people is when we have the most free time to go to the library. Also, a lack of staffing. It's very difficult to get the attention of a librarian because most of the time they're doing something, helping someone, and a lot of times you do have to resort to the computers because there's not enough staffing to take care of all of the questions. Also, many of the books in the library are in disrepair. They are not kept very well. They're not replaced when they're battered and broken. A lot of times it's really tough to get consecutive books in a series. If you're reading a series, it's without going through the hassle of ordering it from LUSAC here. Also, the waiting lines are really long because there's just one librarian working behind the counter for the checkout. And finally, without the library, a lot of kids in Eagle River and Anchorage would not have a safe, friendly environment to go to. Instead, they would be at the local skate park or at home playing video games. I'd just like to ask you which one you think is better. It's probably the library. But that's all I have to say, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming. Mr. Harmon.
Can I ask, you said you're high school still? How old are you?
I'm 17, sir.
17. Well, thanks for taking the young lady to someplace real active and proactive. Thanks for your time, and thanks for sharing your information.
Thank you. Anyone else for public participation? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none?
Sure. Mr. Chair, real quick, can I ask from the administration the status of any this declaration of disaster for our windstorm damage? We were supposed to get an update. I think they were having a work session or something, and I haven't heard.
Thank you for the question. After going through all of the results and the tabulation, it was determined that we did not probably meet the level that was necessary to declare a disaster for the first storm.
So I guess I'll get with you offline, but there's several people who have called trees down, still debris and damage to the right-of-way fencing and several trees in the parks and of course...
just ask them to call. Just call. If it's a park, call the parks, and if it's a right-of-way, just call the roads, streets and grounds, and they'll take
We're just getting conflicting information. I was told that they were waiting a decision, and some people were saying we're going to clean it up, others are being told we're not.
If it's in the right-of-way and it's causing a problem in the right-of-way, obviously it's going to be taken care of. Same thing in the parks.
Thank you.
Any other assembly comments, questions? Not? Chair is open for a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Somebody want a second? We stand adjourned.